Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, geeks, nerds, ambassadors, my friends, and welcome to the Ambassadorial Wing. Tonight, we celebrate 2 years on YouTube and celebrate this community that we have built together. And of course, I am your host, the Ambassador. And tonight, as I said, we celebrate 2 years of the AW, of the Ambassadorial Wing. And I want to thank everyone who has been a part of my journey here on YouTube, everyone that has supported me, encouraged me, and just been awesome and excellent. And I greatly appreciate all the support. And of course, here's a face I have not seen in a little bit. Mad Max of Movie Medicine Entertainment. Max, thank you, my friend. I greatly appreciate it. And you have a good night, bud. We'll talk to you later. But yes, 2 years. 2 years ago, this November, I started my journey here on YouTube. Started out as a little nothing channel and have slowly worked my way up the ranks, have made a lot of great friends, have had a lot of great experiences. And tonight is not just about me. Tonight is about all of you. All of you who have supported me these last 2 years, who have been on my live streams, who have watched my live streams, who have been a part of this community, who have encouraged me in so many ways. And tonight we're gonna have some fun. we're gonna have ourselves a good time. We're gonna be discussing Ghostbusters Afterlife, which I did have the opportunity to go see yesterday afternoon, and we're gonna gonna be making a major announcement about a project I have been working on over this past year, and what that project entails going forward. And here is another face that I have come to here is a person I've come to call a friend, a fellow ambassador, and all around groovy guy, Zach Leary. Zach, Red 5 standing by. Good to see you, man. And I'm going to be dropping the link here in the chat for those of you that want to join me this evening for the festivities, for the review, for the discussion, for just spending time together and celebrating this community that we have built together, because no man is an island and no man can do everything on his own. He has to have friends. And I am very grateful and very blessed to call you all my friends, to call you all my fellow ambassadors. And DC Talk with Extended, what's up, Ambassador? Just stopping by to say hey before I head to work. DC Talk, you have a good night. Be safe. And thank you for stopping by, man. Greatly appreciate it. But, just to kind of kick off the festivities tonight, want to reminisce just for a few minutes, and then I'll get into my discussion on Ghostbusters Afterlife, and we will go from there, obviously. And, 2 years ago, I decided to throw my hat, figuratively speaking, into the YouTube arena and start my channel. And I was like, I'm going to try and do this. I'm going to do my best to put forth the best content that I can create. I'm going to make content that I am passionate about, that I care about, that I want to discuss with other people. I want to be a representative of this thing called pop culture that I love so much. Hold on one second. This hat's driving me crazy. My headphones are not cooperating. So, as much as I want to wear the hat, I want to have my headphones up where they'll stay put. But, you know, when I started out on my journey here on YouTube, I set the bar high for myself because I wanted to do my very best. I wanted to bring people content that would be refreshing for them, because I know that by and large the YouTube space has been viewed as somewhat of a negative atmosphere. And I decided very early on that I would be a voice of positivity, of reason, of integrity, and I would hold to those ideals very strongly and very passionately. And over the last 2 years, I feel, succeeded in that endeavor. I have tried to be a place where people can come and share their passion of film, of movies, of books, of everything underneath the pop culture umbrella. And I am happy to say that I have gained far more than I have lost. And I am happy for that. And tonight, as we often do here on the Ambassadorial Wing, we're going to have an honest conversation. We're going to have a fun conversation with each other. We're going to discuss this thing called pop culture. And tonight we are going to be breaking down, as I said, Ghostbusters Afterlife. And to jump into this, and full spoilers, full heads up now, there will be spoilers for my review for this discussion, because I feel you can't give a honest and a full critique of a film without giving spoilers. And I will tell you all, full transparency, I didn't know what to expect to go when I went into Ghostbusters, when I went to see Ghostbusters Afterlife yesterday. All I knew was I was excited for this film. I have been a longtime fan of the Ghostbusters films, the first two. We don't acknowledge 2016. And of course, the animated series from the 1980s. And I honestly walked in, I got my drink, I got my nachos, and I was like, all right, let's kick back, relax, and enjoy this film. And enjoy I did indeed. I And to the chat, two other friends I have a lot of respect for, two people I call fellow ambassadors as well, Just George and Benson's. Gentlemen, it is good to see you tonight. Thank you for popping by. I'll prop up George's comment here real quick. George, just a heads up now, if you don't want any spoilers, I would click away now. Hey, Ambassador, congratulations on 2 years. Fandom is bear. When we have more YouTubers like you trying to unite fandom, I plan on making videos again next week at the earliest myself. George, excellent. And another friend that I have come to expect to see in my chat quite often. Hey, John Wayne, just watched. This is more a Humphrey Bogart hat than a John Wayne hat, Benson's, but thanks, bud. Hey, John Wayne, just watched Rocky IV Director's Cut. It's fantastic. A classic film that has been improved with a fleshed out side, much more like Apollo, much more from Apollo and Adrian. Highly recommend it. I appreciate that, Benson's. I have never been a big fan of the Rocky films. I don't necessarily hate them. It's just not my thing. And I'll pop up your comment here, George, real quick. Also hoping to see Ghostbusters Afterlife during Thanksgiving break. Sounds promising so far. George, as I said, if you don't want any spoilers, I would click away now because my review is going to be spoiler heavy. Because, like I said, you can't really discuss a film without really fully discussing the film. And oh, hey, PLK Entertainment. PLK is good to see you. I know we've talked back and forth on Twitter and here on YouTube and everything, and really appreciate your take on things. I know we don't often see things eye to eye, but um, I appreciate your candor. I appreciate your authenticity, and I appreciate your what you have to say on the films that you and I have covered over the last few weeks. So, um, but thank you. I greatly appreciate it, and I wish the same for you as well on your channel. So, George, thank you. I agree. Yeah. I'm gonna try. I'm gonna do my best to keep doing what I've been doing these last couple of years and going forward. So, but anyway, let's get into this thing. Ghostbusters Afterlife. Now, I will say, as I mentioned before, I wasn't sure what to expect with this film. Now, I did see the trailers, I watched them, and I'm like, okay, this seems to have promise. This seems like it's in keeping with the original films. And honestly, I was very pleasantly surprised. I will say this movie has a lot of heart. It has a lot of enthusiasm. It is I think, both a love letter and a potential jumping off point for further adventures with the Ghostbusters franchise. I will say there are a lot of callbacks. There are a lot of member berries, as it might be, as one might say. But I think the way they balance this film, the Jason Reitman and his dad, they did a magnificent job paying homage to the original films, to the original Ghostbusters, and potentially setting up the future of this franchise. I have to admit, the cast for this film, it was excellent. I mean, granted, you're working with child actors, you never know what you're going to get. You could either get Freddie Both from The Mummy Returns, good performance, or you could get, Lord love him, and I do mean that most sincerely, you could get Jake Lloyd from The Phantom Menace. And that poor guy, I feel truly bad for him. But I will say in this instance, the cast, both adult and kid cast for Ghostbusters Afterlife, they they did a great job. I mean, I as I said in my short that I sent out yesterday, I laughed, I screamed, I had a few jump scares, I cried, I ugly cried. And I mean, ugly cry for me, that's a different level. And another shout out to the chat. Leroy Kong 3 2021 and beyond. Leroy, it is good to see you. And hey, if you didn't have the same experience I did seeing Ghostbusters Afterlife, Leroy, that's cool. I mean, like I said, I have been a very long time fan of the Ghostbusters films. I mean, as a child of the 80s, how could I not be? I mean, I remember watching them growing up as a kid. I mean, I love good comedy. I mean, you can't get much funnier than Rick Moranis. Um, yeah, Rick Moranis. Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Harold Ramis. You got Ernie Hudson, and this film, like I say, it pays homage to the original two films. It's a continuation of that story, but it's also its own story as well. Because what we have with Ghostbusters Afterlife, it's picking up many decades later. The Ghostbusters have gone their separate ways. We find that out later on in the film, and with a conversation between Ray and Phoebe. And I will say this: Um, Egon's grandkids, they are an absolute riot. They are hysterical. Yeah, Leroy, I wish they would have done more, but unfortunately, it is what it is. Sadly, but I have to admit the performances across the board were great. And yes, as I said, full spoilers, the boys are back. They're not back for very long in the film, but the boys are back. Venkman, Stance, and Zedmore all make an appearance. And okay, full spoilers for those of you who have not seen Ghostbusters Afterlife. If you do not want um, anything spoiled, click away now. They even brought back Egon. Now and we see him twice. Once is um at the beginning of the film, and then one is at the end of the film during the final battle against Gozer. And I will say this, looking at the design for Gozer from the 1980s film to now, granted they couldn't do what they did with Gozer in the original film, what they did with Gozer here. Gozer looked, I think, even more frightening, even more menacing, even more just creepy as hell. And I was just absolutely positively like, they even got somebody who could do the voice. I mean, it sounded like the original actress who did the voice of Gozer from the first film. And I want to send a shout to the chat, Keely Chow. Thank you, bud. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you for popping in. Right now, I'm just giving my review of Ghostbusters Afterlife. And yeah, Leroy, I didn't realize that there were two credits, one mid credit and one after credit scene. I heard that there was one mid credit scene, and then I figured that was it. So I don't even know what the second what the post credit scene was. But yes, that mid credit scene with Venkman and Dana Barrett, it was great to see Sigourney and Bill Murray on screen again as Dana and Venkman. And it was absolute right. I won't spoil per se what the mid-credit scene is. Y'all have to go see it for yourself, but it is a great little callback to the first film. But honestly, getting into the film itself, essentially what we have is this is Egon's daughter and her two kids. Um Benson's, again, this is a bogey hat. This is not a cowboy hat. I know if I know you're from over in England, but cowboys don't wear hats like this. Humphrey Bogart wore hats like this. Even the Blues Brothers kind of wore hats like this. Another great Dan Aykroyd performance. But no, Benson's Rick Moranis as Louis Tully, he does not make an appearance. Now, Annie Potts as Janine Melnitz, she does have one scene in the film. Again, guys, I'm telling you now, full spoilers. So if you're not wanting to know anything, leave now. I'm not saying that to be rude or anything. I don't want you to get upset with me because I'm spoiling this thing. But yeah, no, Louis Tully doesn't make an appearance. So no Rick Moranis, unfortunately, Benson's. But I will say this, getting into the film itself. Essentially, like I said, this is Egon's daughter and her two kids. We don't know who the father is. We don't even know who Egon's wife was. And here's the thing. Egon did not end up with Janine. There was some flirting, but from the impression that we get from Ghostbusters 2, Janine ended up with Lewis, not with Egon. And even at the beginning of the movie, Egon is by himself. Now, granted, they had to stand in because obviously, as we know, Harold Ramis is no longer with us. But they had a stand in that kind of looked like him, had similar build. They did his hair up to make it look like Egon's hair, just him older and everything. And it was a good cold open, as often they do with the Ghostbusters films. But the all the little callbacks, all the little touches, seeing the Twinkie in the glove box of Ecto One and everything. Because for those of you who know, who saw the trailers and everything, we do know that Ecto One does get fixed up by Trevor, the son, Egon's grandson, and of course Phoebe finds the proton pack. She meets this one quirky kid, and I love this kid is hysterical. Um, right, Kitty? Thank you. It is good to see you, and happy early anniversary to you as well. So, and for those of you that are in the chat, if you have seen Ghostbusters and you want to come on and talk with me about this, or if you just want to come on and just listen to me ramble until for however long you want to, I have posted the link. It's pinned up at the top of the chat. So, but I have to say, the two kids, Egon's two grandkids, Trevor and Phoebe, they they are Spanglers down to their bones. They are quirky, they're awkward, they're weird, but the good kind of weird. They are absolutely hysterical, both when they're separate from one another and when they're working together. And she has that very dry sense of humor, just like Harold Ramis did when he played Egon. And it's such a you can sense what they were trying to do when they cast this film. They were trying to find young actors or young adult actors who kind of had that Egon Spangler vibe to them, and they did it. Now I can't remember the name of every single. I can't remember the name of the actors per se, but I will say that the young actress who played Phoebe, she did a great job. The actor who played Trevor, he did a great job. The actress, I think her name's Carrie Coon, who played the mom, she was hysterical as well, and she was very at some point she was very dour. She was very down because they were hanging by a thread. They were flat, bloody broke. They got evicted from their apartment and everything else, so they are at the lowest point that they can get, and they end up inheriting Egon's house, and he moves out to Oklahoma. And this movie very much does dive into the lore of the first Ghostbusters movie, dealing with Ivo Shandor and how he built the apartment building in New York City and the cult of Gozer that he established and everything. He basically, what we learn is he built the town of Somerville. He established it lock, stock, and barrel. There isn't a building in the town that doesn't have his name on it. So, and I want to send a shout out to very, very good friend, Classic Comics. Classic is good to see him, man. Yeah, I'm gonna keep doing this until I can't do it no more. So, but thank you, man. I really appreciate it. It is good to see you, and I hope you're having a great night, my friend. So, thank you for popping by. Um, but in terms of what they did with this film, it is like I say, it is a continuation of the story from the first film, and um, it's but it's also its own story because you're dealing with Egon's family picking up the legacy or carrying on the legacy and even discovering the legacy because his daughter doesn't realize who he was, where he came from, what he had done in the 1980s in New York City. And you see the granddaughter Phoebe come across the old advertisement from the first film with Spangler and Venkman and Stantz, and they're like, Have you do you believe in spook specters or ghosts? We are ready to believe you. And she's like, holy crap. My granddad is Egon Spengler. He was a Ghostbuster. This is freaking awesome. She's like, and the one kid that she meets in summer school, podcast played by, I think the actor's name is Logan Kim. This kid, he is hysterical. And hey, Ferris, it is good to see you, bud. Hey, Ambassador, just got out of watching the movie, and you were right. It was worth the wait. Did you know that Finn Wolfhard, who played Trevor, wore a Ghostbusters uniform in Stranger Things? Ferris, I have never actually sat down and watched Stranger Things. I have had many friends who are 80s kids like me who have recommended that I do check it out. I've never got around to it. I do know that Trevor, the actor Finn Wolfhard, he does have a part in Stranger Things, and I think this is actually going to incentivize me to watch Stranger Things and everything at some point. So, but yeah, Ferris, I am glad you had a great time. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And whenever you get home, if I'm still going, which I'm going to be going for a while tonight, this is going to be kind of a long stream because got a lot I want to talk about, a lot I want to do. I want to give everybody a chance to come in here. Let's see. Right, Kitty. Um, I've seen bits and pieces of Stranger Things. My dad and brother are obsessed with that. We're obsessed with that for a while. Yeah, right. A lot of people. I mean, especially us 80s kids and everything, us that grew up in that decade. Hi, hello. 80s kid through and through. I mean, I started my whole channel 2 years ago talking about stuff from the 80s, talking about movies, talking about toys, talking about music and everything else across the board from the 80s because it's something that I love and I'm passionate about, and I always have been, because the 80s was a great decade. And what I think Ghostbusters Afterlife does is it pays homage to the original film. And I know I've said this many times. I want to kind of pinpoint in on why I think it does such a great job of paying homage to the original films, but also being its own thing. This obviously takes place in 2021, and you've got Egon's family looking back on his legacy. You've got a daughter who, Carrie Coon, who plays Egon's daughter, who's very hurt and wounded by the fact that she feels like Egon abandoned her, left her behind, didn't care about her. She at one point says that all scientists are assholes, essentially. But then she discovers Egon's secret laboratory there on the farm and everything where he was living all those years. And she finds this pegboard that's got all these pictures of her from out throughout her childhood, and she realizes that her father did love her, that her father did care about her. She just he felt he had a obligation to protect the rest of the world from this danger, that danger being Gozer, obviously. So, and another good friend I have made in the last couple of years here on YouTube, TW McKay. TW, thank you very much. I greatly appreciate it, and hope you enjoy the stream tonight, however long you plan on sticking around. I know you don't often come on TW, but if you got to see Ghostbusters Afterlife and you want to talk about it with me, link is up yonder. Door is always open. So, but anyway, and that's another thing that I enjoyed about this film, the whole journey of discovery for Egon's family, because they didn't know that the daughter didn't know that her father was a Ghostbuster, that he helped save the world quite literally, and that he was kind of a hero. But we find out everything partway through the film because Egon's kids and everything and the one boy podcast, they get pulled in by the police there in Somerville. And she gets one phone call, and she ends up calling Ray because he still has his little cult shop and everything there in New York, in Manhattan. and he kind of gives a rundown of what happened with him and the guys. And it's very kind of heartbreaking because you figure these guys are all the best of friends, but they all go their separate ways. And even Ray says Egon Spangler can rot in hell. TW, go see it. Go see this film. You will have a great time. If you are a fan of the original films like I am, if you are even an 80s or 90s kid like I was, you'll enjoy this. Very much so. This movie has so many layers to it. I mean, as I was saying, you've got the family discovering who Egon was, and the daughter coming to the realization that her father did care about her, but he, like I said, he felt he had an obligation to protect the rest of the world from the danger that was Gozer. He understood they had beaten Gozer back, but they hadn't completely defeated her. And the other guys, Stance and Venkman and Zedmore, they go their separate ways. They do their things. Venkman actually goes back into academia. He becomes a professor, and he's a professor emeritus at some university, I guess, on the Eastern Seaboard. So, and Zedmore goes into finance, does very well for himself, and well, like I said, Ray, he keeps his little cult shop there in Manhattan. So, and Ferris, since you're a kid of the 80s and grew up with the movies and the real Ghostbusters, what are your thoughts on the Extreme Ghostbusters? That was my first show and my first introduction to Ghostbusters. Um, Honestly, Ferris, I never had the opportunity to watch Extreme Ghostbusters, so I don't really have a frame of reference for that. I did hear about it, but if it was what got you into the franchise and what you enjoyed, then by all means, hey, that's great. And you know, I've often said this about these older franchises. It's kind of our obligation. It's kind of our duty, not our obligation, but our duty as fans of these franchises to kind of introduce a new generation of people to them and help them become fans themselves. Because a franchise cannot just rest on its laurels. It can't just be the older bunch of fans that keeps it going. You need to bring fresh blood into this to various universes, whether it's Ghostbusters or Star Wars or Star Trek or any of the other big franchises out there that people like myself grew up on in the 80s and 90s. And speaking of someone that is a lifetime nerd and someone that I greatly respect, J Man, thank you, bud. I really appreciate that. And J Man is, I want to say this has been a pleasure getting to know you, being able to have some conversations with you about this thing that we call pop culture, especially comic books and superheroes and all those sorts of things. And um, I look forward to our next collaboration. And thank you for coming by tonight. Really appreciate it, man. And I think that's kind of continuing on from the point that I just brought up. I think that's what Ghostbusters Afterlife really um so okay, TW, yeah. Let's see. TW, is Unity of the Force the fanfic you've been working on, or is it a new one? TW, it is the one I have been working on. Um, I changed the title of it because the story kind of expanded and evolved on me, and I'll go into that a little bit further later on in the stream and everything because I want to get my thoughts on Ghostbusters first, and then we'll move on from there, and we'll discuss that. So, and J Man, yeah, same here, man, and Thank you, Leroy. Appreciate it. But I think what Ghostbusters Afterlife does and does very well is it pays homage to the original movies, but it also introduces these new characters, and it's a inroad or an introduction to this universe. Because here's the cool thing: if you've never seen the first Ghostbusters film or the first two, this would give you incentive, if you enjoyed this film, to go back and watch the original two films. Now, the thing I will say, and I don't have necessarily a extreme bias against the 2016 film, but there's a line of dialogue in the film that makes reference that there have been no ghost appearances in nearly 30 years, which kind of completely and utterly ignores Ghostbusters 2016, which, considering the reception that that film got, I think is rather appropriate. And I do want to bring, there's one other performance in this film that I really enjoyed. Now, granted, uh, Paul Rudd's character, Mr. Gruberson, Gary Gruberson, Paul Rudd has become, I mean, ever since I saw him in 40-Year-Old Virgin several years ago, and then of course his roles as Ant-Man in the MCU, I have a great appreciation for Paul Rudd as a comedic actor. He, I think, is one of the funnier comedic actors out there, and I love him in this film. He is hysterical in this film, as I didn't expect otherwise. So, um, the thing I will say is his chemistry with Carrie Coon as the mother, Egon's daughter. They have a great, yeah, right, Kitty. Yeah, I love that film. Steve Carell, Freddie Pyle, come say oh, Kelly Clarkson. I do. I love For You Virgin. That movie is funny as hell. It is. And of course, Paul Rudd and Seth Rogen. You want to know how you're gay? Hell, I saw you make a loaf of sourdough bread. Well, you know how you're gay? How? I saw you macrame a pair of jean shorts. And Paul Rudd's timing in this film, he's right there with the rest of the cast. He's right on it. He's quirky. I think he's just as awkward in this film as the rest of the cast. And and there's a very awkward energy to this film with all the actors and actresses in it. But if for those of you that remember the first Ghostbusters film, the same principle was true. I mean, you've got three guys who work in academia. They're all scientists, they're professors, yada yada yada, and then they go into business for themselves. And then you've got the blue collar guy, Winston Zedmore, played by Ernie Hudson, and they were all goofy, they were all awkward, they were all very out there. And okay, there is a nice little callback. Um, Yeah, Ferris, I did know that, and there's a lot of people who have talked about that Ghostbusters game, and they say it actually is a yeah, Zach, yeah, absolutely. Zach, I'll get to your comment here in just a minute. But Ferris, yeah, there's a lot of people who have said that the game that they did several years ago, it was intended as a sequel to the second game or to the second movie, and a lot of people have said that what the story that they tell in this movie, um falls in line with the first two movies and the video game. So, but yeah, Zach, and major spoilers here, guys. Just heads up. Yeah, Dan Aykroyd. Zach. If you remember, Dan Aykroyd is a Blues Brother. If you remember that movie with him and John Belushi from back in the '80s, another great '80s film I covered back when I first started my channel and everything. That was that. I love Blues Brothers. John Belushi, Dan Aykroyd, Carrie Fisher. Um, they're all That movie is an absolute. Yeah, Zach, I have no doubt of it. I have absolutely no doubt of it. But major spoilers now, and but then just real quick, shout to the chat, Eastland Burkholder. Eastland, it is good to see you, man. Thank you for popping by. TW, that's fine. I'll be going for a little bit on Ghostbusters, and then I'll be popping. We'll be transitioning over to the other topic of tonight. But major spoilers. The guys do show up at the end to help out Egon's kids or grandkids, and everything. Put Gozer back in her little prison, and Venkman is riffing on Gozer, and he's like, "I thought I could quit you, but you just keep coming back. You keep pulling me back in." And there is a great callback for those of you that remember the first film when Gozer asked the guys, "Are you gods?" And she asked the same thing again. Are you gods? And Zedmore says to Ray, dude, don't do this to us again. And he does say, yes, we are gods. Or actually, I think it's Venkman that says, yes, we're gods. We're totally gods. But she doesn't buy it. And, you know, okay, now this is a major spoiler. And I want to just tell you all now. So just a major heads up. And this is the part why I ugly cried. Phoebe has got the proton pack and she's got the rifle in her hands. And she's trying to push Gozer back and everything because the other guys have got knocked down and everything by Gozer. And then I ugly cried. I may ugly cry again here right on camera, right live in front of you all. You see a blue hand come around Phoebe's as she's holding that proton gun, and they pan up, and it's Egon, and damn it, son of a bitch, I got choked up. I did. I legitimately got choked up. Now, earlier on in the film, there Phoebe finds one of the PKA meters, one of the detectors that detects spiritual energy, and it would periodically turn on while she's there alone in the house, or when she's just by herself and everything, but her mom or her brother's somewhere else in the house. And yeah, Zach, Twitter is going to lie to you. There is no way in hell that 2016 is better than this. No. Okay, you guys know me. I don't swear very often, if ever. No effing way that 2016 is better than this film. This is the sequel we should have gotten years ago. This is the sequel they should have done in 2016 instead of giving us that massive dumpster fire. I like the actresses. Don't get me wrong. I like Melissa McCarthy. I like those actresses. I think they are legitimately funny. But that movie is a massive train wreck dumpster fire of a disaster. Now, if you disagree with me, fine. I'm not going to hold it against you if you do. If you liked 2016, fine. But personally, this film is superior in every conceivable way compared to 2016. Because you've got Jason Reitman working with his dad. You've got Dan Aykroyd working with the two of them to write this film. And it is an homage and it is a memoriam to Harold Ramis. Because at the end, when they defeat Gozer and Egon, the daughter embraces Egon's spirit. And that's where I ugly cried. I did. I'm not gonna lie to you all. because it hit me right here. For you who wondering, it hit me right freaking here. And he disappears. And it shows the star. It shows the starry sky, and it fades in the two words for Harold. And I was like, y'all nailed it. It's perfect. I'm going to say this now. I'm going to put my full credibility on the line by doing this. This will be the sleeper hit of 2021. Not Dune, which I loved. I love Dune. Great film. Not Eternals. And I don't care what a bunch of naysayers and a bunch of butthurt fanboys who have nothing better to do but pitch a conniption fit have to say. I liked Eternals. But Ghostbusters Afterlife is going to be the sleeper hit of 2021. Because it's a film that a lot of people have waited for. And I say this as a member of this franchise. It is an entry point for other people to come into this franchise and be introduced to these characters, because these are funny and deep and interesting characters. They're not like the biggest thing ever, but they're relatable. They're funny. They're human. And honestly, I hope Ghostbusters 2021 goes on to make a buttload of money. I hope it does very well, and I hope it brings the franchise back into prominence, because I would like to see them do other films, whether it's with Egon's grandkids or whatever direction they want to go in. I would, if they decide to go that route, great. Do it. Wait a few years, wait for them to get a little bit older and see them kind of work with the guys again if the original three are able or willing to come back for another film, or if they aren't, whether they kind of this was their curtain call. And if it was a great curtain call. It was hysterical. It was. Yeah, I'll bring up Ferris's comment here. Zach Larry, oh God, it still bogs me that Rotten Tomatoes gave Ghostbusters Afterlife a lower score than 2016. What are the critics thinking? Ferris, the critics are butthurt because people like this film better than they did 2016. So, and I'll bring up Zach's comment here. Then we'll get the whole, if they release the Feige cut thing, or a Feig cut. I haven't seen it, but Bill Murray himself said it has the feel of the first one. Hopefully this proves that 2016 was a waste. Zach, I think it's definitely going to do that. I think Afterlife is going to blow 2016 out of the water. And yeah, dude, it just means you're human. It just means we're human, and that's fine. So, and I'll bring up your comment here, Riot. I haven't seen Afterlife, but yeah, both my mom and my dad went to see it, so I guess I go see it. I'll go see it twice. Well, your mom and dad want to see it, so I guess I'll go see it twice. Riot, I know your personality a little bit. We haven't streamed very often, but we have streamed a little bit. I think you will like this. I legitimately do. I think you will enjoy this. I love comedies and I love the supernatural, and this was a nice mixture of the two. And for me, like I said, and it might just be my frame of mind, because for those of you who follow me on social media know the last couple of weeks for me, and just heck, this past year in general has been an absolute slog in a lot of ways, in terms of dealing with Mother Ambassador's health and her and she's better now, 100% better. She's back on her feet. And then Wednesday, we took Madam Ambassador in for her. Took her to the ER and everything, and I won't get into all that. You all know the situation there. And she's doing better now. She's still recovering. She's still hurting from the surgery, but the main issue has been resolved with Man Ambassador now. So maybe it was just the fact that I was in the right frame of mind for a movie like this. I don't know. Call it kismet, call it chance, call it coincidence, call it God. I don't know. But this was this helped me decompress. I was planning on seeing it anyway, regardless. And it was nice to just go to a movie, sit back and relax and just enjoy myself. I took mental notes and everything because I knew I wanted to give you all a fair take and a fair review of this film. But it was nice to just sit back in my nice comfy chair in the theater with my soda and my nachos and just enjoy the film. And that's what Ghostbusters is. It's a chance to just sit back and relax and be entertained. And that's what film should do. It can engage you like Dune did for me. It can engage and both entertain like Eternals did for me. But in the terms of Ghostbusters Afterlife, it was fun. It was funny. It was a little bit scary. It was nostalgic in all the best sense of the word. And it was a good time. Yeah, Ferris, you know exactly, yeah. I'm with you, Ambassador. I later freaked out and teared up at the same time when the ghost of Egon showed up. It was really touching when he reconciles with his team and with his family. No lines at all. Yeah, and I think that was best. I mean, I know they really couldn't have had any lines for him because they didn't have any dialogue from Rick Moranis later on in his life or anything, and they maybe could have pieced together something. But I think honestly, him not speaking was just as powerful. Just little expressions, little looks here and there, and it was perfect. It truly was. It was perfect, and that's the strength of this film. It doesn't take itself too seriously. It doesn't try to be more than it is. It simply says, "You remember the originals? Come see what we've got for you now." Or if you're new to this universe, come along for the ride. And it was a ride, and it was a fun one. And I will say this in terms of the special effects, the visual effects, the CGI, and the practical. Um, they were. I think the effects were good. I think I will say this. I think they were an improvement. Granted, from what they did back in the 1980s, obviously. I mean, the effects for the proton pack were right in keeping with how they looked originally in the 1980s. Seeing the demon dogs of Gozer again, they looked great. Seeing the little miniature Stay Puft marshmallows. Okay, I want to get into this because there was a point in this movie where it got super meta for me, like super meta for me. Because for those of you who don't know, I work at a Walmart now, and I'm very happy. I'm back in retail. I'm doing something that I love again. Granted, it can be stressful and everything, but I love working retail. And when Paul Rudd, his character, Gary Gruberson, goes to the Walmart there in Somerville, and I'm like, okay, this is about to get really meta for me. And he goes to the free frozen section. He gets himself a pint of Baskin Robbins ice cream. And I'm thinking, why doesn't my Walmart have Baskin Robbins ice cream? Or maybe I'm just missing it. I don't know. Or maybe it was just product placement. I don't care. But him seeing the little Stay Puft Marshmallow Men coming out of the bag and them doing all the little goofy stuff, them and one of them being in the blender and one of them gets frapped. And then the other ones are taking chocolate and making s'mores out of them. And you see them playing on the grills and everything. There's one little marshmallow guy that's got two other marshmallow guys on a skewer, and they've got the the grill going, and they're actually burning their fellow Marshmallow Man. I'm like, man, Marshmallow Men are kind of freaky here. Yeah, I'd be worried if the effects weren't any better. Yeah, Ferris, I agree. Yeah, but yeah, but I will say, okay. There's one point where Gary Gruberson, Paul Rudd's character, is walking around and he gets kind of freaked out by all the little marshmallow guys at some point. But then he goes to the pet food area and he sees one of the demon dogs munching down on a bag of dog food. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is hysterical. It is absolutely positively hysterical. He's like, and the dog and the demon dog sees him, and he's like, oh crap, and he runs. And unfortunately, the demon dog catches him, and you can probably imagine what happened next. Like a certain TV reboot couldn't even have a proper running animation like the 80s version. Like a certain TV reboot that couldn't even have a proper running animation unlike the 80s version. Oh, are you talking about the Ghostbusters animation reboot that they did, Riot? Is that what you're talking about? Because I'm not making the connection. Nothing personal. I'm not making the connection. So, but honestly, the humor in this film, I wouldn't expect any less from the Reitmans. Oh, She-Ra. Okay, I didn't Riot. I never watched She-Ra. Obviously, I'm a guy. She-Ra wasn't made for me, and that's okay. Master of the Universe. Now, and just a little quick segue. I did recently watch the first part of Masters of the Universe Revelations. I really liked it. I did. I really enjoyed it. So, Zach, LOL. Yeah. Yeah, Ferris. I can't remember who brought it up, but somebody else brought up the fact that Rick Moranis' character Louis Tully did make an appearance. And well, here's the thing: for all we know, him and Janine are married. She doesn't mention that she isn't or anything. So, and okay, and I'll bring up your comment here, right? It's okay. I was simply reminded how flabbergasted I was that somehow the 2018 cartoon had worse animation than the original that came out 30 years ago. Well, just goes to show that lots of people can draw, but not everybody can do it well. And Lewis Cox, hey Lewis, good to see you, man. Hey Ambassador, have seen anything Transformers wise? Lewis, I haven't watched. Okay, if you're talking about anything, yeah, and right, that's fine. Lewis, I haven't watched any other Transformers animated series for a very long time. The last animated series I watched was Beast Wars, and that was a long time ago. In terms of the films, the last film I watched was Dark of the Moon. And after that, I was like, yep, I'm done. Bye. I haven't seen a single one of the other Transformers films since then. And I had no interest. I mean, I hear that they're doing a live action something or other with Transformers Beast Wars, but I'm simply not interested. Oh no, Zach, I'm probably going to be switching over here in a few minutes. So if you want to come on in now, because I may do a little bit more later on and everything with Ghostbusters, but we're probably going to switch over to the other topic for tonight. So, and I'll bring up your comment here, Riot. But yeah, I hope to get to watch Afterlife soon. I liked the War on Cybertron stuff on Netflix. Like I said, I haven't really watched any of the animated series for Transformers in a very long time. I mean, like I said, the last thing I watched for that was Beast Wars, and Transformers is something I will always like, but it's something that I've kind of outgrown, if that makes sense. I mean, I will always love the Gen 1 stuff. I will always love the toys and everything, Beast Wars, and at least the first couple of movies that they did, did enjoy. But and I will always love the animated film from the 1980s. But as far as anything else, it's a franchise I'm just not really invested in. And I want to welcome my good friend here. You know him, you love him. He's quirky. He's always got an opinion, and it's often a good one. Mr. Zach Leary.
What's up, people? How's everybody doing? Ambassador, congrats, dude. I was happy for you. I did a tweet about you.
Thank you.
So congratulations on it, man. Good for you, man.
Thank you very much. I greatly appreciate that, Zach. And Zach, I just want to say, it's been a real pleasure getting to know you and working with you, and just having a good time. So
yeah, appreciate it, man. Well, you did a great job, and I'm sure we'll get to that later.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about both those projects and everything for sure, most definitely. I'll just bring up Ferris's comment here. Ambassador, have you seen the Bumblebee movie? I love the homage to the Gen 1 design of the War on Cybertron. Ferris, no, I haven't. Like I said, after a while, I just kind of checked out of the Transformers franchise. I know it's something that a lot of people like. I mean, as an 80s kid, I do like the original stuff, the Gen 1 stuff, and even going into the some of the other stuff that sprang out from that, like with the Headmasters series and everything. But it's a franchise I don't have a lot of investment in anymore.
I have a similar experience. I mean, same with G.I. Joe for me. Like as a little kid, I liked that type of thing, and I had the toys and stuff. But it's like, I mean, the road kind of ended with Revelations, right? Isn't that what it was? G.I. Joe Revelation?
Retaliation. Yeah, Retaliation.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, it's kind of fun, but it's like, what's really the point of it, And they released a new animated show that just sucked. I mean, just really bad.
Well, and I watched Rise of Cobra. I thought it was okay. Yeah, I had some issues with it. I didn't hate it, but I was just like, yeah, I don't really feel like watching this again.
It was weird though, kind of. It was kind of odd. Certain things and choices that they made, like Zartan was cool. I thought he was a good character. That was probably my favorite character in that movie was Zartan.
Yeah. I know that they did a Snake Eyes movie, and I've got a friend and everything. He's been on my channel a few times. And he went to see Snake Eyes, and he was like, I say this as a kid of the 80s. I absolutely hate this. He did. He absolutely hated it, and I can't say I blame him. And I'll bring up J-Man's comment here. G.I. Joe as a live action property is dead. Same with Transformers. Some of the animated stuff may survive or continue. Yeah, J-Man. Like I said, I saw the first 3 of the Michael Bay Transformers films. After the third one and what they did to Leonard Nimoy, I was like, yep, I'm done. I am done with this. I am done with this franchise. I am not going to watch any more of the movies, and I did not watch anything past Dark of the Moon.
His voice was good, though. He had a badass voice. of course.
Yeah, well, of course it's Leonard Nimoy, but the thing that killed Dark of the Moon for me was when he did the quote from Wrath of Khan.
Yes, I
Oh,
noticed that.
that
Yes.
I was like, Leonard, no, no. I mean, I literally said that in theater when I was watching. I'm like, Leonard, no, that quote belongs in a better movie than this. No, it just
I you know,
it made my head hurt.
I think the only time I've actually done like an outburst in the movie theater was when they killed Thanos in Endgame in the first 10 minutes. I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I know, right? I mean, but then of course they did the thing that they did with Endgame, and I was like,
Yeah, they brought him back. So
yeah.
yeah,
Well, you can't. And of course, you've got Thanos and What If, and I really liked him in that episode with Star Lord and everything. But yeah, and I'll bring up your
I
comment
didn't
here,
like what
Ryan.
Ultron did to him, though. I'll tell you that. I mean, I was a little pissed off about what the fuck
Woo!
was that.
Sliced him in half. Zzz, done.
I don't think it would go down like that.
Well, considering Ultron had the Mind Stone and as advanced as he was with his reaction time, him being a artificial being, it's plausible. Is it completely believable? Well, we're dealing with fictional characters here in a completely fictional universe.
Within
Anything
a
quite literally
fictional
is
universe, frankly, right? It,
yes,
yeah. So, yeah,
but
well, I was just annoyed by it. It's like, God damn it, what the?
yeah, yeah. But I will say, Thor's line, and they're like, "What did you do?" He's like, "I went for the head." And I'll bring up let's see, I'll bring up Riot's comment here. Should I admit that I liked Michael Bay's Transformers movies, except for the last night. That one was just weird and horny.
I've never
I
seen it,
did.
so I'm not
I
sure.
as I said, I haven't watched anything beyond Dark of the Moon. I simply can't. Um,
I do know, though, however, Ambassador, I'm not sure if you're aware of this. They somehow got
mhm.
Anthony Hopkins to appear as a main character in The Last Night.
I wasn't. We haven't had a chance to see it. As I said, Man Ambassador has
How'd they
been.
get Hopkins to do it? I mean, that's a
I
what?
have. I have. I have. Oh, last night. Oh, I don't know. They backed up a truckload of money to his front door and said, "Hey, you want to come do a Transformers movie?" He's like, "Sure, I've got nothing else better to do."
Hey, Anthony,
Uh,
Sir Anthony, you know how you always wanted that house in the Bahamas, right?
and I'll bring it. I've got Ferris's comment. Will you go check out the upcoming Transformers: Rise of the Beast, directed by Creed 2 director Stephen Campbell? It's a continuation to the Bumblebee movie. Ferris, probably not. I'm just like I said. I'm just not. I'm not interested in. I'm just not interested in giant robots anymore. I've kind of moved on beyond that. And I'll bring up J-Man's comment here. What if was a disaster? Gamora's Stonebreaker doesn't work because it's stones from a different dimension, but then how is Ultron able to use them in a different dimension? Do I agree that there are a few continuity errors in What If, J-Man? Yes, I do. But does that detract from my enjoyment of it? No. But that's me. That's my perspective on it. So, and I'll bring up your other comment here. I've seen all the Transformers films. They all suck. Yes, even part one. I didn't see Bumblebee yet. Hey,
Certain
again,
parts I like within them. I mean, I would agree that they suck. It's kind of like cheap entertainment, but there's some stuff I can enjoy. Like, I mean,
mhm.
even the Optimus Prime narration as he sets the stage for you is just kind of badass. You know, I mean,
Well, yeah,
certain things.
because it's Peter Cullen. It's Peter Cullen doing the
Yes,
voice of Optimus,
right.
and Peter Cullen will always be awesome regardless of what he does. But like I said, I just in terms of Transformers, it's a franchise. I acknowledge it's there, but I'm just not. I'm not really invested in anymore. It's it had its time in my life, and that time is over. I'm not a kid anymore.
You've
I'm an
broken
adult.
up with Transformers.
I don't say I'm necessarily broken up with Transformers. We just went our separate ways.
Okay,
We had an amiable separation. It went its way.
gotcha.
I went mine. Now, J Man, yeah, I will do that. Yeah, I understand where you're coming from on that one. Little Shia LaBeouf, little Shia, just do it. No, I don't want to, and you can't make me. With Wix Club, I have no idea what Wix Club is, Riot. So I have no frame of reference, but that's okay. That's completely and totally okay. But just to give my last word on Ghostbusters Afterlife. This is a homage to the 80s and everything that made Ghostbusters great, and it is I think a nice continuation of the franchise. Now, if they do anything further with it, great. If this is it, then great. It went out on a very strong high note. The only thing that kills me is I didn't stick around for the second after credit scene because I caught the first one, but I didn't know there was two. Nobody told me. How come no? All of you on Twitter, how could you let me down? Why didn't you tell me there was two post-credit scenes? I didn't know. I would have known. I would have stuck around. AYK singing. Who is AYK?
That is Dan Aykroyd. You
Oh,
wanted to play that for
Aykroyd.
the folks. You don't have to. But it's pretty funny. I mean, he really talented guy, man. I did not know he could still sing. I was like impressed.
Oh, yeah. J-Man's giving me crap. Dude, you always stay to the end. Come on. Yeah, I guess Marvel and everything should have taught me to know better. And Zach, yeah, I will bring up that clip in just a minute. Whenever they make a movie about giant robots and giant monsters, it's hard to come up with a story that would completely attract audiences and critics. Like, for example, Pacific Rim and Godzilla.
Well, they did it with the Matrix, right? Essentially,
Mm-hmm.
it depends on what you do. You had what were those things that could fly called from the Matrix? You know what I'm talking
The
about?
Sentinels. The
Yep,
Sentinels.
yep.
Mm-hmm. So, oh dear Lord.
But I would
Oh dear.
agree, though. I mean,
Mhm.
Pacific Rim was kind of a waste of time, dude, for me. And I
I've never.
love that director. That's Guillermo del Toro, one of my all-time
Oh,
favorites.
Guillermo. Yeah, I love Guillermo.
Me too.
His movies are hysterical. Well, speaking of someone who brings a great deal of hilarity wherever he goes, if it's nerdy, if it's geeky, it makes him gasm. So, ladies and gentlemen, give a very warm welcome to my friend and yours, LDG of Geeks Enjoy Nerdrotica. LDG, good evening. Donut Homer.
Evening, boss. How's it going, guys?
How you
What's
doing, man?
up?
Better, slightly. It's
Yeah,
been a roller coaster, but I don't
yeah.
know. It just felt like I wanted to come on and say hi, and
Hey.
it's been a while,
Dude. Glad to see you, and my most sincerest condolences on your loss. Truly, I know I messaged you and everything on Twitter and everything,
Yeah,
but
thank you, man.
You're welcome. So,
Yeah. I saw your
well,
Matrix trip the other day. That was interesting, to say the least.
Say one more time.
I said I caught your Matrix stream the other day.
Oh, okay, good.
Can't tell you how bad I wanted to come on, but it just wasn't feeling it.
No, dude, you need to take care of you right now. I've been there. I've done that. It sucks. It hurts, and I'm right there. Yeah, to let you all know, I will be wrapping up my my Matrix discussions tomorrow afternoon and everything. Gonna do that as an afternoon stream and everything.
Oh,
yeah. I'm gonna do. I've had Sci-Fi Nation on with me for the last 3, and I've had a lot of fun because I love the Matrix franchise, and I'm really looking forward to Resurrections. Fun fact. Well, it's a little fun fact. They actually had the trailer for Resurrections playing before Ghostbusters Afterlife, and I was like,
Not really.
This is a trailer. This is a trailer. I'm really excited. I'm like, ooh,
Was
I
it a
get to
new
see
one?
this. No, it's the same one that they've already released, but I was
Yeah.
like, still, that's a trailer I almost feel like I want to do a deep dive on because I think the song that they chose by Jefferson Airplane, Go Ask Alice, it's got a lot of heavy metaphor for what I think the movie itself is going to be.
Yeah.
Oh, good grief, J Man. Really? I'm going to make like a baby and head out. I may be back if you guys are still going. Live long and prosper. Peace and long life, J Man. And if we don't see you later.
I'm
So,
definitely looking forward to the new trilogy of The Matrix. So let's see.
oh yeah, I have been a longtime fan of of the movies.
I'm telling you, it's going to be the next Star Wars of the lawnmower man.
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait.
We shall see. So, and hey, Zach, that's cool if it's not your thing. I respect that.
I like the
So,
first three.
yeah. We'll question.
So
What'd you feel about the Animatrix? Did
I've
you
never
like
seen
it?
it. I didn't even know it existed until you did your podcast about it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've never heard of it.
I can't remember. Do you have HBO Max?
I do. Yeah.
It's on there. They have
Yeah, you should watch it. You know,
all four of them. All four of them are on there. So
Okay, I might.
You remember the last statement that the architect made in the third movie?
the architect doesn't show up in the third movie. He only
Yes, he
shows up
does.
in. Oh, that's right. He does. He does. My bad. Yeah, at the end. Yeah, yeah. It's been a while
Yes, he
since I've
does.
watched it.
No, I don't. Go ahead.
His last statement was, "What do you think I am, human?" The Animatrix explains why he said that.
Who that dude is?
No, it explains why he said that. What do you think I am, human? When the Oracle said, "Are you going to go against your word?" and he responded, "What do you think I am, human?" The Animatrix explains what that meant.
Yes. Zach, I highly encourage you if you want to. There's one part in particular within the Animatrix, and I talk about this in my live stream. There is a 2-part episode part of that anthology called the Second Renaissance. Second Renaissance parts 1 and 2. It is quite literally an origin story for how the Matrix comes to be and how the world is in the state that it's in. So, and Jason Lee Tucker, Jason, is good to see you, man, and
Hey,
appreciate you
Jason.
stopping by. So, and hey, Riot Kitty, you have a good night, young lady. Behave yourself, and if you can't behave yourself, well, then don't get caught, and we'll catch you next time. But yeah, Zach, I say this with all sincerity. I highly encourage you go check out the Animatrix. I know anime's not really your thing, but I think if you just want a good anthology within the Matrix universe, you want some more context for the themes of the Matrix, and particularly if you watch nothing else of that, watch the Second Renaissance parts 1 and 2. It is I would say it's essential to understanding the setup for the world that we get in the Matrix trilogy, and now it'll be a quadrilogy. So
I hear you. Yeah, I'll check it
so
out.
yeah.
Well,
So
that's what sets the Animatrix different than like your average AI taking over the world movie is because the Matrix, it was our fault.
yeah,
It,
essentially.
it was our fault. We caused our own problems.
Yeah. So there's a lot of themes that are somewhat reminiscent of, say, like Terminator and things of that sort. There's no time travel, but dealing with the whole construct or the whole situation of how humanity relates to artificial intelligence and mechanization and everything like that. The Second Renaissance really gives you a sense of why the world is in the state that it's in. And I don't want to spoil it, and I will not spoil it for you, Zach. So the only thing I'll say is go check it out. So, but well, I think we're gonna transition on to the next topic of the evening, and well, this is another franchise that I have been, for those of you who know, since I've started my channel, it's been something that I absolutely love, and that is, of course, Star Wars. I did a whole stream on it last night. Just spent a couple hours talking about why I have been and always will be a Star Wars fan. For those of you who know, and for those of you that aren't familiar, I was not a fan of how the sequel trilogy panned out. And in particular, I was not a particular fan of the conclusion to Rise of Skywalker in terms of how Rey identifies herself. And I asked myself this simple question: how am I going to react to this? And this is something I sat on for a very long time. And I think this wasn't something that came to me overnight. It was something that just kind of, well, to quote Morpheus, was like a splinter in my mind, driving me mad, but not like mad. And I asked myself a question: well, Ambassador, what are you going to do? Do you just want to do a one-off video where you just kind of complain about the fact that you didn't like the fact that Rey took the Skywalker last name? Or do you want to take that same energy and do something constructive with it? I chose the latter. I chose to do something constructive with it. And back last year, I started writing this fan fiction, which initially was called Rey Who. To answer the question, who is Rey? What is her journey? And over the course of this year, or the writing this fan fiction, it's evolved because I realized I didn't want to just tell Rey's story, but I wanted to tell Finn's story. I wanted to tell Ben Solo's story. I wanted to tell Snoke's story, the story of the universe in general, with the First Order and the New Republic. And I wanted to tell Luke's story even, and his sister Leia. And over the course of of a year, I have written this 12-part fan fiction. Well, 11 parts with a epilogue that is written by Rey herself, and no spoilers or anything. Well, at least not right now. But I realized I had started on a journey that I never intended to go on per se, because in the process of writing this fan fiction, I laid the the framework to tell further stories. In particular, going back and telling how Rey and Luke and everybody else that's in their orbit gets to where they are now at what is quite literally the finale of this story. I've kind of paid homage unintentionally to how George Lucas told his story. He told the middle and ending chapter first, and then went back and did the beginning with the prequels. I'm kind of following the same format here, so to speak. But the story that I have created over the last several months, since August or September of last year, involves not just Rey, but Finn and Ben and Leia and Luke and everybody else. And tonight, I am starting this is my major announcement for this project that I'm going to be spearheading. This is my baby. I've worked long and hard on it. I've still got a little work to do, but it is more or less done. So tonight I'm making my formal announcement, and let me bring this up here real quick. Just gotta find the right folder. Of course, it would disappear on me. Come on, where are you? Oh, crying out loud, seriously. No, it's. Don't you hate when you have a folder just put right where you want it and then it decides to disappear? Like, son of a bitch. Oh, there it is. Okay. All right, here we go. Just got to get this. Here we go. All right, it's opening. All right. Let's see. Screen share. Window. There we go. Star Wars, the Unity of the Force, a fan fiction by yours truly. And for those of you who might be wondering, who is R. Phillips? Well, it's a pseudonym for my real name, so to speak. Hang on one second. Let me get back over here to, because I have my online persona, the Ambassador, but I wanted to put a proper name to this because my friend down here kind of encouraged me to do so because of another project he and I have been working on for the last couple of months. But this is my baby. That's not the right file. Damn it.
So I think it's the one you showed me.
It is. I've altered it a little bit, but it's pretty much the same thing. So yeah, but like I said, I've spent the last year working on this fan fiction, and well, this is the dedication for it. This fan fiction is dedicated to the memory of my father, who introduced me to this universe when I was young, who taught me to dream and believe in heroes, real and fictional. He was my hero. And even though he went on to be one with the Force, his presence is never far from me. Much like Anakin, who reaches out from the nether realm of the Force to guide his son Luke. I know my father looks on as well. Thank you, Dad, for leaving me with so many wonderful memories. And one day, much like the Force, we will be united again. The Force is with me, and I am one with the Force.
Nice.
Well, like I said, my father, like I said in this, he introduced me to this universe. And ever since then, it has been a part of my life. And now I am adding my own voice in some small way to this universe that I have loved since I was a young man. And y'all might be wondering, well, Ambassador, you've written this fan fiction. What are you going to do with it? Well, my intention is to cast it as a quote unquote radio drama. I want to. My goal is twofold. One, to bring this story to life in the best way that I know how. But also, I hope that this story, concerning the themes that are contained within it, will help to maybe further repair the divide that exists in the Star Wars fandom, a fandom that I have been a part of all my life, and I hate to see there be division in it. And the story I tell in my fan fiction does partly revolve around Rey, but it also does revolve around the conflict that has existed between the two factions of adherence to the Force, the light side and the dark side. And if you all will bear with me for just a moment, I'll actually I'll pull up my fan fiction and give you all just a little taste of what I've been working on over the last year. So, like I said, it still needs a little bit of editing and everything, but it is, for all intents and purposes, done. So, oh, mercy.
Real quick, boss.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I know anything that you do, you put a lot of heart into it and work into it. So I know it's going to be a blast. If you need any help
Mm-hmm.
as far as the radio um, part of this,
Yes.
that's I would love to be a part of that. Let me know.
Well, I was going to
LDG,
say the same thing.
LDG, I was actually going to be talking to you about precisely that because what I would hope to do is do this live because I want to do this like a live table read, and I want to cast everybody. I want to cast all the parts and everything, and
War of the Worlds kind of thing going on. Is that what you're talking about?
sort of, just not without with all the special effects and everything, unfortunately, because that's just kind of out of my realm. But in terms of the logistics of having everybody live together at the same time, that sort of deal. You follow
Yeah,
me?
yeah.
So
Like how Orson did it on the radio is what I was talking about. Isn't
yes,
that how he
yeah,
did
more or
it? Like
less,
he
yeah,
did it live on
exactly,
the radio, and everybody thought it was real. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, totally.
yeah, yeah. Well, let me give you. I'll share a few parts that aren't like super spoiler intensive or anything. Um, I'll read this and everything, and then y'all can give me your thoughts on it and everything. This is the intro that I've made out, or that I wrote and everything. Um, because all Star Wars projects generally have a crawl. Um, this is the intro to Unity of the Force. Over a year has passed since the events on Crate. Across the galaxy, the First Order and New Republic rebuild their forces in an effort to liberate or enslave the citizens caught in their ongoing conflict. On the world of Octo, Luke Skywalker has been guiding the young Force wielder Rey, aiding her in her skills in the Force. Alongside Luke, his two former masters and his father, Anakin, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Yoda, have aided in Rey's training, bringing fresh insight into their understanding of the Force and seeking to break the cycle of conflict that has existed amongst the adherents of the Force. Kylo Ren has been plagued by a voice in his mind, beckoning him to the unknown regions of the galaxy. Leaving the First Order headquarters on Fondor, he travels to a world nearly forgotten by the galaxy, a world whose very name makes people's blood run cold. Exegol. And that's the intro. Let's see here. Let's give y'all just a little taste of what I've done.
Is Palpatine in this?
No.
Okay.
No. This isn't necessarily a major spoiler or anything, but Snoke is still alive.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah. And I want to send a shout out to the chat to my good friend Alicia Victoria Parker. Alicia, thank you, my dear, and appreciate you stopping by tonight, ma'am. It's always a pleasure to see you. So let me do something else here real quick instead of. I will give y'all a few little excerpts from this, but I put together my cast list. Now, a lot of these are characters from the films, but also some of them are characters I created. Let me get over here real quick. I've got 3 cast lists. Well, it's supposed to be 3. Where's the other one? Let me guess. All right. Well, anyway, there were supposed to be 3 cast lists on here, but unfortunately, there's only 2.
Yep.
Well, how I've got it divided up, the one cast list is the First Order and the Imperial Remnant. And that includes General Armitage Hux, General Hux from the sequel trilogy, for those of you who remember him. A lot of these are characters I created. Vice Admiral Antor Nesh, who is of the First Order. Moff Edrin Becca, she is from the Imperial Remnant. Taelis is an Arcanian spy working with the First Order. General Vorn, also another Imperial officer. Captain Tiberius Nella of the Imperial Remnant. Colonel Rhea Veers, she is an officer in the Imperial Remnant. And the Knights of Ren. I have one prominent character besides, obviously, Ben Solo, but I created a second in command, a character by the name of Dan Thier, or Dan Thanier, who was a student at Luke's Academy. What the story I'm trying to tell is, or what the story I am telling is, how all these characters are connected. And I'm actually using the Knights of Ren as more than just set dressing. They have a presence. They have dialogue. They are very driven to destroy the new Republic, to seek out any and all Force wielders and kill them or bring them to Snoke or to Kylo. I will tell you, there is a twist to the one character, Tay Ellis, the Arcanian. I won't say what, but she isn't everything that she appears. Now, the other cast list is for the New Republic. We've got General Leia Skywalker Solo. Yes, she took up her father's name and she kept her husband's name. General Poe Dameron, Admiral Akbar Wedge Antilles, General Wedge Antilles, Lando Calrissian. He's also a general. General Callus is actually he was Agent Callus in the animated series Rebels, and then Colonel Burdett is a Chiss. For those of you who are familiar with that race of characters from the Star Wars universe, that's the same race that Grand Admiral Thrawn was a member of. And then Lieutenant Race Madine is a relation of General Crix Madine, who we see in Return of the Jedi. There's supposed to be a third cast list here, and it's the Force wielders, which includes Luke. Leia could have potentially been on that cast list because Leia is formally trained in the Force. She does use the Force throughout the story, but I decided to keep her here. Obviously, Luke is. You've got Luke, you've got Rey, you've got Finn. Yes, I did build out Rey or Finn as a Force wielder. You will know Ben Solo, obviously, and his other identity as Kylo Ren. As I mentioned, Snoke is a part of the story. But I added two other characters in because I like these characters. They are from the expanded universe. They are from Disney Star Wars. A much older Ahsoka Tano and a older Grogu. So
now, when you say older, wasn't he like 50 in the Mandalorian?
Somewhere along in there, yes. So,
so we're talking like slightly older or like teenage in comparison. Like,
he's not as old. Let's put it this way: he's not as old as Yoda, but he does speak. He has gained control of his Force abilities. He was a student of Luke. I do keep that particular piece of continuity from The Mandalorian and everything. Now, I don't reference The Mandalorian or anything in my fan fiction, directly anyway, but I did like that particular plot point that they introduced in at the end of Mandalorian, where Luke does take Grogu. I also, like I said, we have Ahsoka Tano in this as well. And she, like I said, I've unintentionally laid the groundwork to tell the beginning of this story. And the beginning of this story will include Ahsoka and Grogu and everybody else that I have cast in this. I might even put a few other characters in both. Well, not so much original characters, ones that I've created, but characters from other parts of the Star Wars universe.
Real quick, I'm not exactly a Star Wars fan, so I can't quote anything. But
No, it's okay.
Isn't Ahsoka dead?
No.
Okay.
No. She would have been, by the time of my story, she is older, but she's not dead.
Okay.
Because we all know that the Force can extend a person's life naturally and everything. Obviously, with Yoda, his races has exceeding longevity in terms of just in general of their species, but if you add the Force into that, it makes them very long lived. So,
well, I've got my resume in the chat for you, Ambassador. So there you go.
Oh, you in the private chat or
Yep.
in the? Oh, okay, gotcha. All right.
I'm going to start lobbying for a part soon, Ambassador. Be warned.
Oh, hey, like I said, I'm going to be reaching out to other channels, ones that are focused around Star Wars, others that necessarily aren't. I'm going to reach out to to friends who have channels to promote this because I want to put the word out about this project. I want this, like I said, I want to cast this thing. I want it to be the best project I can possibly present because I love this universe and I want to make the best project I possibly can. Let's see. I'm scrolling through here. I want to give y'all just a little taste of what I've created. I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to necessarily spoil anything. I'm trying to, let's see here. Okay.
I'm actually being summoned, so I'm gonna have to step out, but I'll be listening.
Okay,
on the show.
that's fine, LDG.
Thanks for having me, everybody.
Hey,
and
dude,
absolutely.
Hey, LDG, you take care of yourself, man.
I will.
I'll be in touch.
Guys. I appreciate it.
Good to see you.
Yeah. So, all right, hang on here. Okay. No, that's got too much spoiler in it. Give me a minute here.
I mean, to be honest with you, I want to play Snoke. To be honest with you, we'll see what happens. You may hate it, but I would like to, I've got my sights set on Snoke.
And if you want Snoke, this will be kind of first come first serve, or so to speak. I've already got a few people who have expressed interest in being a part of this, and I have said, if you have a part in particular that you want to go out for, then I will definitely give you a hearing, and we will go from there.
I could probably easily play like a general or some shit like that, or an admiral voice for you.
I've got several of them. I've got
it's about time an American shows up in Star Wars, don't you think?
Yes. Yeah. I wholeheartedly agree with you, Zach. Yes. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, here we go. This is perfect. Because I can do this part and it's not going to necessarily spoil anything per se. Because there's one little part in here that's a little bit spoilery, but at the same time, I can leave it out and it doesn't diminish anything. Let's see. Okay. All right, here we go. This is actually from part 8 of the story from Unity of the Force. Okay. 6 months has passed since the Battle of Kashyyyk. In that time, the New Republic and First Order have continued to muster their forces for the conflict that will reshape the galaxy. On Tython, Luke, Ahsoka, and Anakin continue to train Finn and Rey. In one of the training areas, a dance of green, white, blue, and sapphire light can be found as the 4 Force wielders hone their skills with their sabers. Bounding through the air, Luke and Rey spar against Finn and Ahsoka. Much like their forebears, their connection to the Force is no longer limited to definitions of light and dark. Looking on from several meters away, Anakin and Grogu examine the form and technique of each combatant. Much progress all of them have made. Strong their connection to the Force has grown. Anakin nods in approval. This is the Force as it should be, unified, flowing without restriction. A shame it is, so many were stifled by the narrow-mindedness of a council who thought themselves wiser than the Force itself. Entering the temple, Poe Dameron and Wedge Antilles come upon R2. Hey there, little buddy. Do you know where Luke and the others are at? The droid emits a few beeps and whistles and motions for them to follow him. As the party nears the chamber, they can hear the clash of sabers. Once inside, they witness the display. The expressions on their faces can be described as astonishment. I never knew the Force could do this. Because, not since the ancient days of the galaxy, has the Force been unified within the minds of a wielder, General Dameron. Kneeling down, Poe meets eyes with Grogu. You all have been very busy since the Battle of Kashyyyk. The small alien bows his head in response. Bringing their sparring match to a close, Luke and the others turn their attention to the visitors. Poe, Wedge, what brings you here? We wanted to check in with you all. We've been getting some odd reports from patrols that have been in the area. The group glances at one another with a somewhat jovial smile. We've been doing a lot of research with the cache of holocrons that Finn and Ahsoka discovered a few months ago. We found some truths about the Force and the ancient Jedi that had been covered up or lost. Well, Luke, I think Poe and myself could use some more information on what's going on here. Follow me, will you please? Proceeding up a few flights of stairs, the group enters a dimly lit chamber with a hollow projection unit in the center. With the help of Yoda, Obi-Wan, and Grogu, and my father, we have uncovered information about the ancients who inhabited Tython and the cause of the Great Schism that broke the Force itself and the order of Force wielders. Rey steps next to the projector and activates it. Long ago, before the Republic even existed, beings from across the galaxy were gathered and brought here to Tython. And here they learned to harness the power of the Force. Over time, they would form communities and families. Clans would be created. And there was peace among them. Finn rises and continues. For centuries, the children of these Force wielders would be taught either by their parents or a master who was chosen by the student or family. What we found truly surprising was that there was no mention in any record of a light or dark side of the Force. The Force was viewed as a unified whole. One day, a rise discord would there be, as the Force wielders increased in number, leave Tython and settle on other worlds. On each world, a council would be formed, but always to Tython would the multitude look for guidance. Luke rises from his seat to finish the tale. As Grogu mentioned, discord would spread across the Order. The nature of the Force would be debated, light or dark, how the young and old would learn about the Force, and who could teach. As time passed, division would grow, and the nature of the Force would change, influenced by those who wield it. Then finally, outright war would erupt as clans of Jedi fought over the nature of the Force. This would lead to centuries of war between the light and dark, Jedi and Sith. Silence lingers in the chamber. Poe rises from his seat and looks around at the group. So you're telling us the Force itself was broken by these ancient Jedi, and ever since then, the Republic has been caught in this war because of it. Essentially, Poe, yes, that is true. There is more to it, but that's the short answer. Then, Luke, what's the long answer? The rest, General, is that the Force forged a physical form for itself, the Father, and when the Force broke, two other beings, the Son and Daughter. One was the darkness, and the other light. When the Son's physical form was destroyed, he clung to unsuspecting hosts, Anakin Skywalker and Emperor Palpatine. When Palpatine was destroyed at Endor, the Son entered a genetically engineered body that we would come to know as Snoke. I'm going to stop there for now.
All right, cool. I like it. I mean, Snoke is the Son, huh?
Yes.
Got it.
Well, there's, and I can tell this part too. There's a conversation between Snoke and Ben, or Kylo Ren, when Kylo's there on Exegol with him. Essentially, the Son and Palpatine were in league with one another. And what happens when Anakin is defeated by Obi-Wan on Mustafar, when Palpatine reaches down to touch Anakin's forehead, the Son uses that opportunity to latch himself on to Palpatine. But Palpatine works with him. And due to Palpatine's predilection for tinkering with genetics and with cloning, they gather genetic material from other Force-sensitive beings. Yoda and Obi-Wan, Anakin, Qui-Gon Jinn, Palpatine's master Darth Plagueis, and they use that genetic material to create the body that the Son would eventually inhabit. Now, originally, it was just a project that Palpatine was messing with and everything. He didn't realize what the Son necessarily had up his sleeve, but when Palpatine gets destroyed by Anakin in Return of the Jedi, the Son, being as powerfully as he is in the dark side, transfers his consciousness out of Palpatine and across the galaxy to Exegol into that body.
Sounds good.
Well, the thing for me with this story is I wanted to tell the story that I would have expected to see, so to speak. but also I wanted to tell a more personal story because I wanted to give Rey the opportunity to decide who she's going to be in this universe.
Well, I think that, the real failure of the
Mm-hmm.
sequel films is the fact that any number of us could have very easily come up with a better storyline than a multi-billion-dollar corporation. That's the real. I mean, that's why you have this opportunity, right?
Yeah. And well, and for me, like I said in that dedication, it's a it's a connection back to my father. And by the end of the story, I'm not going to spoil anything. It is a very satisfying, but a very there's a lot of darkness in this story, but there's also the
Good.
balance of a lot of hope as well. And there's several twists, there's several plot points that you don't expect it to go the way it goes, and so on. Um, it does, as George Lucas himself said, the story rhymes. It has a flow to it. And the thing that bothered me the most about the sequel trilogy is it didn't have that rhythm. It didn't have that flow. It felt very disjointed and out of sync. And it has literally taken me a year to write this because I wanted to write a story that meant something to me, but I would hope would also mean something to the broader Star Wars fandom. I mean, I may be just one little channel out here talking to anybody that'll listen to me, but I know this universe. I may not know it as well as others, but I know it. I understand it. It's a part of me. It's a part of my identity as a person. Some of the dialogue that Ray says is stuff that I have said in my own life. When she discovers her true origins, it breaks her. And it broke me when I discovered my own true origins as well. When I found out that I was adopted roughly 10 years ago now, it broke me. It was a shock. So I took that same feeling and I interjected it into Ray to make her more
Mhm.
relatable, make her more real, and make her more empathizable.
Well, as writers, and you're definitely a writer, talented writer. I've read and heard some of your stuff. We pull from what we know and what we've
Mhm,
experienced, and I would say every character I've ever written has some similarity to myself.
mhm,
And even if you're doing a villain, and I'm sure you know this, you
mhm.
empathize with your villain, and you give that villain certain
Yes.
dark tendencies that perhaps you would never act on, but that you
Mhm.
can sympathize and understand what it is that they're thinking.
Yes. So, and just before I say my next thing, I want to send a shout out to several people in the chat. Tim's Talk, Superhero Collectibles. Let's see. Oh, for heaven's sakes, Mary with T and Telly, and Alan of Press Play Studios. Ladies and gentlemen, good to see you all this evening. Thank you for popping by. And I'll bring up your comment here, Tim, real quick. Ghostbusters Afterlife, my favorite part was the end when they had the Dragon Ball Z part, father son Kamehameha. Yeah, I get that. I get that reference, Tim, and yeah, I'm glad. I haven't had a chance, but I get the impression that you really enjoyed Ghostbusters Afterlife. I did myself, but yeah, the thing
Well,
for me.
let me say this real quick. Here's a funny little story, from a George R. R. Martin interview. Somebody asked
Oh
George,
boy.
"Is it hard for you to write for a young woman like Arya? Is that hard for you, George?" And he said, "No, I have more in common with her than I don't. We're both human beings,
Hmm.
so it's not that hard. I mean, you just have to empathize with your character. You just have to be truthful about your character. That's all that really matters."
Yes. Well, and, I even, yes, the son is the villain. He is the overarching villain of my story, but he he is also he is, as you say, he is empathizable. He is relatable because there's more to his story than what I'm letting on here. And I've kind of given a little hints and clues and everything as I said. And I'm not upset to bring any of this up and everything. It doesn't bother me. But that was the one thing I had a problem with the sequel trilogy. It didn't feel like they did the legwork for
They
this.
didn't. No, they didn't. You're right.
And they're now doing this all in backfill. And they're going backwards, and they're using the expanded universe concept in a way that wasn't necessarily intended. Because the expanded universe, and I don't want to get off on a big tangent here or anything. I want to kind of stay focused on talking about the story and my thoughts on it and so on. The expanded universe was always intended to be a sandbox for other people to come and play in, to write their own stories, to expand upon the universe itself. It wasn't meant as a retcon device, essentially. And
A,
that's
a
what
loose continuation.
yes, a very loose continuation where people, like I said, that could come and play, could write their own stories, and if the stories weren't directly connected to one another, that was fine. Nobody had a big issue with that. For the Star Wars fan base, as speaking as a member of that, we saw the expanded universe stories as continuations from the main movies, and but it didn't necessarily have to be canon. It just could be its own thing, and the movies could exist as their own thing, and we were all happy with that. Now, if you regarded the expanded universe as a continuation of those films, cool, great, awesome. I that's the way I looked at it. But I never saw it as breaking the canon of the films. It was its own separate thing, it was its own separate animal. And that's kind of the deal with my story. Obviously, it is not canon, but I'm pulling from my knowledge of canon of both of the films and of the expanded universe to craft this story. I mean, I've got the Chiss and the Mon Cala and the New Republic. Well, the Mon Cala obviously being a part of the New Republic. I've got the Chiss Ascendancy and the New Republic as allies because I created an original character of my very own because I love the Chiss race. They're very smart, they're very cold, they're very calculating, and they're very cool. And I created this character, Colonel Burdett, and it's a female Chiss. She's a colonel in the Chiss Ascendancy military. She comes with a whole group of Chiss officers and technicians and engineers and strategists and everything to help aid the New Republic. There's a well, you know what? There's a whole conversation
Well,
between her and General Callis.
let me say this, and I may
Sure,
have said this on your channel before. I'm not sure,
that's
but
okay.
I mean, it's gotten to the point where I could go around and give like a political stump speech on according to Star Wars. I mean,
Mhm.
I've got the repertoire. I know what it is. And I would say one of the major points that I keep trying to make is the fact that what we really had with a potential sequel trilogy is a chessboard that's already set up. You've already got every element you could possibly ever need to create a good story. You already have it. You don't have to invent anything. All you
Mhm.
have to do is move the pieces around the board and get there. And from a writer's perspective, that's one of the easiest things you can do. I mean, it's hard to create a good story. You know that. I know that. But Ambassador, I mean, imagine you or I trying to create something this vast from scratch. It would be a
Mhm.
fucking,
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
But we already have everything we need. We can pull what little pieces we want to use and
Mhm.
employ them. And that's all they had to do. They didn't have to reinvent the wheel. They just had to do something interesting.
Yeah, and unfortunately, They didn't. Now,
No.
I've got friends who are fans of the sequel trilogy, and you know what? I don't regard them as lesser than myself. They are fans of this universe. They just like they like a different part of it. That's the long and short of it. They have their particular points they like. I have my particular points that I like, but I don't to me there's no divide, there's no division here.
Well,
There's
I,
no
I
need
almost,
for there to be antagonistic or hostile towards them because they are a fan.
well, my opinion on the sequels has changed. I don't think you
Mhm.
even need to bring in any sort of political element into it
Yeah.
whatsoever to prove it's a bad story. So we can, when people try to tell me about social justice and all this stuff, I tend to go the opposite direction and say, look, we can break it down from a story perspective. That's what
Yes.
I know, and that's what I want to do when I'm talking about stories. Your interpretation is not going to be the same political interpretation as somebody else, and plus, you can't prove anything. You can't prove that somebody had a certain intention, but we can tell you why it's a bad story.
Yes, exactly. And you know, for me, the reason I wanted to include the Imperial Remnant, not just the First Order, I wanted that particular dichotomy. I wanted that particular interaction between these two factions because I look at it this way: the First Order is a splinter group off from the Imperial Remnant, and they go off and they do their own thing. They form their own collective, and the Imperial Remnant exists now. In my story, you've got the First Order and you've got the Imperial Remnant in league with one another. But everything is not as it appears on the surface. I don't want to spoil anything, so I won't. But not everybody in the Imperial Remnant is completely on board with working with the First Order, particularly once Snoke comes back into the picture. Not all of the officers in the Imperial Remnant give two hoots and hell about Snoke, much less the Knights of Ren. Now, this is something I will tell right now and everything to give some full context. The Knights of Ren, the way I wrote them, they were students at Luke's Academy that followed Ben when he destroyed it. But there's a much deeper story that I'm going to go back and tell, and everything that I'm going to sit down and write and everything in part one of my trilogy. Because that's essentially what it's going to be. I'm going to write two more parts to this that I'm going to tell how everybody got to where they were here. And the Knights of Ren are not window dressing. They are, for the most part, fleshed out characters. I do have one or two main knights that I do focus on. And I wanted to use these characters because I like the concept of there being a group of students that broke away with Ben. It wasn't just Ben on his own. So, and I want to send a shout to the chat. One of my good friends from the Council of Ones, Fiona Wolf. It's good to see you, madam. Yeah, and also Benzo H. Benzo, it's good to see you, man. I know it's been a little bit, but glad to see you stop by and appreciate you being here tonight. So, I'll bring up Fiona's comment here real quick. Wave, most writers try to be original when all you really do is add your 2 cents to the wheel that already is rolling. Adding a new tread is easier. That's the way newbie writers stall. So, let's see here. I'll
Well,
scroll down
so
a
I've
little.
been a writer for about 10 years, so.
Mm-hmm.
But I would agree with that for sure.
Yeah. Well, Fiona's writing her own stuff. I think she's
Oh, cool.
doing stuff. Yeah. Um, let's see, Ben, I'll bring it. And Fiona, thank you, madam. And I'll bring up here. You're braver than me, Ambassador. I wouldn't even keep the First Order in my story. The thing for me is I wrote the characters of the First Order to be more interesting than what they appear, how they appeared in the movies. I mean, for me, Armitage Hux, he had the potential to be a great character. And I've already got a friend of mine because the guy who plays Armitage Hux, Donald Gleason, is an Irishman. And one of my friends, one of my co-hosts on the Council of Ones, Mountains of Elysium, he's like, I want to be Hux. I was like, well, I thought of you when I put him into my story because I wanted that mad Irish accent coming out of Hux.
There you go.
I did.
There you go.
I wanted that particular vibe. Let's see. I'll bring up. Let's see. I would have had the Remnant versus the New Republic, Cold War turned World War III. So, well, and Zach, to answer your question here, is the First Order and Final Order related to Sidious's set of orders as Chancellor? I don't even acknowledge Sidious. I mean, well, I do. I mean, he is. There is. He does.
I'm saying in canon,
Okay.
because you have Order 66, First Order, Final Order. It's kind of tricky to say, really, what the deal is.
Honestly, I'm not even remotely sure. I don't have any intention of reading any of the novelizations.
But you get what I'm saying, though.
Yeah, I do. I get exactly what you're saying. I would have also not had Kylo name be Ben. It's would either be Bale or Anakin. I chose it because I liked that dynamic. I liked, I'm keeping the names because the names are a connector to the character, but it's a readaptation of how I view how these characters should have been.
Well, yours is just the third installment. What you would have done after Last Jedi. So
and here's the thing too. I am going to come up with different titles because this, like I said, this started out simply as called Ray Who, a Star Wars fan fiction by me. Now it's the Unity
that's
of
a
the
good
Force.
title. That's not a bad title.
I know, but like I said, the story evolved in such a way that it wasn't just Ray's journey anymore. It deals with everybody. And I kept digging and making sure I didn't use a title that hadn't already been used for some other Star Wars story or film
Somebody
or
already
animated
used
series.
it?
Huh?
Somebody already used that one?
No.
Well, if you did it like an episodic, you could name an episode Ray Who if you wanted to.
Yeah, maybe, have it like with the different parts that I have. I could title one particular part simply Ray
It
Who.
might be easier to produce an episodic and then put it together.
Well, that's kind of my intention. I'm not going to do all 11 parts all at the same time when I do these when I do these radio drama episodes. I'm going to do it episodically. We'll do a part each time we all get together, and I'll have the casting call and everything for who's going to need to be there and everything. I'm going to have this script, this whole story laid out like a script. And I think, well, I do have it partially that way already. I just need to go back and do some editing to get the rest of it into the form of a script. So, I do want to answer Ferris's question here. I heard your fan fiction while I was multitasking with my family. Do you have any plans of making a fan fiction based on DC or Marvel? Honestly, Ferris, no. I mean, I love Marvel. I mean, most everybody here knows that, but that's not really my wheelhouse. I mean, and DC, there's lots of other people out there that are probably doing something similar along those lines already. And it's not something I'm particularly interested in doing.
Oh, I'm with you. I would be a terrible guy for a Marvel movie. I really would. But on the other hand, I think I could make a kick-ass Batman story. I really do.
You probably could.
Batman.
You probably
right
could, considering how much you love Batman. You probably
love
could.
Batman. Yeah.
Benzo, are you going to keep the Resistance? No, Benzo. There is no Resistance. It's just the New Republic. There's no Resistance.
Which makes sense.
I don't have. Because here's the thing. I'm basing this on the idea that the New Republic kept their military intact. They're
And
not
weren't nuked
stupid.
in the first
They're
one.
not they're not stupid. Yeah, here's the thing with how I'm going to form this out, and I've already got the rough sketch of parts 1 and 2 already in my head. No super weapons.
Good.
There are
Thank
there
you.
are there are not going to be any super weapons. Now, I am going to have new tech. I do have some tech that is kind of new and different for the Star Wars universe. And well, for instance, with the First Order and Imperial Remnant, they've pulled their resources in this story. They've reactivated several of the droid foundries on Geonosis, and they're churning out battle droids. So battle droids are going to show up. They found the Imperial Remnant has found several caches of clone commandos in cryo storage. Those are going to play a part. There's going to be 2 new classes of ship on either side. Well, 1 new class of ship,
That's a
one for
great
each.
idea.
There's going to be a new class of ship, 1 for either side, for the New Republic and for the First Order / Imperial Remnant. The new class of ship, I actually introduced in part 3 or 4, is called the Solo Destroyer. In memorial for Han Solo. It's essentially, how can I describe it? It's a dreadnought class ship that packs enough firepower to take on 1 or 2 Imperial 2 class Star Destroyers. And it's what I put into that particular part of the story is there's a conversation between the Chiss officer Burdett. She's talking to General Callis, and what they've done is they have cannibalized Imperial Star Destroyers and Mon Cala cruisers to create this new breed of ship, and it's got a piece of technology that's kind of an advancement from something that already exists. It has energy absorption shielding, that any fire that it takes in is absorbed and put into generators, and then it can be diverted to weapons or propulsion or even into the shields themselves. With the First Order, they've got their own class of ship. It's also a destroyer or a dreadnought type class ship, and it's got mass drivers or railguns, if you prefer, that can pretty much devastate the surface of a planet. And you do at one point see one of these ships in action. It's kind of like the ship that they show at the beginning of Last Jedi, if you remember that at all, Zach.
Oh yeah,
The Dreadnought.
the dreadnought. Did you see?
Yeah, but
Check the private chat real quick.
sure. What'd you do? Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I'm not going to disagree with you on that one, Zach. Yeah, because that thing was freaking huge. Yeah. The motherfucker glasses. Yeah, because that sun girl F you up.
That's like a shit your pants moment when you see that fucking thing pull up, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Captain Leary would have just taken a pod right there.
Yes. But what I tried to do in terms of the world building, I used the New Republic and the First Order Imperial Remnant to world build, but also to further the story, to make the stakes higher than it just being Luke and his bunch and Snoke and his bunch, and that's it. Because I want to continue the story of what happened to the galaxy in the years after Return of the Jedi. And like I said, there aren't gonna be any super weapons. I do have new technology, or I've got technology that I've borrowed from the expanded universe, or just something that I cooked up on my own. But my goal for this, as I mentioned before, is to have this project, because I have titled it Project Unity, because I care about this fandom. I love this fandom. I have been a part of this fandom practically all my life. And the thing that I've hated to see is all the infighting and the backbiting and the name calling and everything else across the board, and people simply forgetting that the people on the other side are fans just like them. They just have a different point of view. To
Well,
quote
that's
a
that's
very
just a problem, period, that we have. But go ahead, sir. I didn't mean to cut you off.
no, it's okay, Zach.
Yeah.
Well, to quote, I mean, there's going to be differences of perspective. I understand that fact, but we don't have to be so bloody antagonistic towards each other.
It's just
Get what I'm
life
saying?
now. That's just how it is now. It's not just Star Wars, it's every topic.
Yeah, pretty
Really, it
much.
seems to me. Why do I
So
see? God, there was such a great quote I heard. It was, "You don't have to win in order to be right."
you just have to be civil.
Well, you just have to maintain your own integrity. If you can do that, you've
That
won.
too. That too. Yeah,
If you can do
exactly.
that, that's
That
all it
too.
takes.
Yeah,
I don't get into Twitter fights or Twitter feuds. Okay.
I don't either.
Um,
If anything, I laugh at
it's
them
a
because
waste
they're
of time.
stupid.
It's a waste of time.
Yeah.
I quit doing debates too. I used to do debates. That's kind of a waste of time too, because my mentality going into those is to win, and that's the wrong mentality.
Yeah. So, um,
Like I did a
yeah,
Rise of Skywalker debate.
I did a stream on it. I did one and I was done because I didn't feel like revisiting the movie.
It's
I
just a
saw no
waste of
merit.
time. I mean, it's just
Yeah,
like we've all heard the points going back and forth. It's just a
exactly.
waste of time. I mean, see, another important thing is to reach your own ideas and conclusions about entertainment on your own, and to kind of
Yes.
disregard what other people are saying, and to kind of, because if you're just telling me stuff I've already heard, I'm not getting to know about the person talking to me.
Hmm.
I'm just listening to the collective. It's not what I
Pretty
want.
much.
If you can tell me
No,
something interesting, I'll listen to you. That's at the end of
exactly.
the day.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll bring up Ferris's comment here because it's a good point. The one thing I didn't like about the sequel trilogy is rehashing the original trilogy by having another desert planet, another super weapon, etc. I
Yeah.
didn't like that one. I didn't think that's one of George Lucas's ideas. No, it wasn't. Now, here's the thing. I do have references, and I probably will have Jakku at one point, but we're going to spend, like I said, I'm putting the rough sketch of parts 1 and 2 in my head. And Jakku is going to play a little bit more of a bigger part. We're not just going to be there for a little bit and then leave. But in my story, we do go to Exegol, and I do reference Crate. We are on Octu for a while because the New Republic uses Octu as a base. Because I give the impression that there are more island chains out there that they can use as headquarters and so on, besides just it being the one little settlement where Luke and Rey and the Force Ghosts are at. The Force Ghosts themselves even play a part. There's a part in my story where Anakin is helping another character. I'm trying to remember. I think it's Finn during a battle. He's acting like a forward scout, and being Finn is there, and Finn can communicate with him. He can relay that information to everybody else around him. And holy cow, here's a name I have not seen, and I'm like, wow, Sir Nerdlot. Hey man, it has been more than a minute, and thank you. Miss seeing you pop up in the chat, man, and hope you've been doing okay. I haven't heard hide nor hair from you in a long time. I hope, like I said, I hope you're doing well, and thank you for stopping by tonight. But I wanted to play with the Force Ghosts. I didn't want them just to be advisors per se, and particularly with Anakin, him loving the heat of combat and him being like still retain part of that aspect of his personality. Of course, yeah, he's going to go along with Finn and Rey to help guide them, because he has a perspective on the Force that nobody else has, because he's seen both sides of it. And there's conversations between them, between Finn and Anakin, and Anakin and Rey, and so on. And even there's a nice little moment and everything at the beginning of my story when they're there on Octu, and Leia's on her way to the hangar bay to meet Rey, coming over from one of the other islands and everything to go on a mission. And Finn says, "Hello, General Skywalker," and they both turn to Finn and say, "Yes, hello," because Leia is a general herself, as was her father, and there's that relationship there between her and Anakin. They were able to reach a point where she didn't hate him anymore. There was reconciliation there between the two of them.
Well, if you watch people's reaction, have you ever done that? Watch people's reaction first time watching Star Wars? Have you ever watched any of those?
I have. Yes, I have.
Those were quite a bit of fun for me, just to see how people react to it.
Well,
you know how many people cry when Vader dies at the end? A lot of them do.
I was one of them.
Yeah. What a touching scene. I mean, that might be the best scene in the entire, series.
Yeah.
That death, and with the beautiful Imperial theme with the harp that comes in. Dun, dun. Really good.
Yeah.
Really good.
Yeah. And I'll bring up Ferris's comment here real quick. I do hear George Lucas wanted to have a female protagonist as the Jedi and a male protagonist as the Han Solo type character. I guess that sort of made it into the film with a twist as Finn and Rey and Finn. Yeah, in a manner of speaking. Now,
I was going to ask you a question too.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I've got a question for you.
No, go ahead, Zach. What's your question?
Do you have a favorite Star Wars scene?
Yes, I do. It's not going to be one that you suspect.
Okay. Let's hear it.
It's that very brief scene between Luke and Leia and Jedi on Endor when they're talking about their parents.
Oh, okay.
Because you see the sorrow and the heartache in Luke's face when he says, "I don't know my mother. I never knew her. I don't even remember her." And that's kind of the reason why I wrote and put out the fan fiction I did for May the 4th back in May and everything. That it was Luke and Leia asking Anakin about who their mother was.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've got it's up on my channel. I don't know if y'all would want to listen to it or anything. I mean, I can pull it up if you're even interested. So, but it's there regardless. But yeah, that is by far my favorite scene because not only that, but the reveal for Leia that Luke is her brother, but the further reveal for her of who her father is.
Yeah. Well, what did this mean when Vader says, "Tell your sister she was right"? What does that mean?
I've always been puzzled by that line myself, to be honest.
Maybe they cut something out of it.
Well, it's been a long time since I read it, but there might be something in the Return of the Jedi novelization. Because there's a lot more in the novelization than what made into the film, because obviously you only have so much time.
That's a good question. I think I don't know the answer to it.
Yeah,
I honestly don't. She was right. I think that's a direct quote from him.
It was, yeah. You're correct. You're quoting it accurately. But
Maybe
that
the
was one of
chat
the
knows. If anybody out there knows, let us know what that was
yeah.
all about.
If anybody knows what Anakin meant by when he told Luke, when he said to Luke, "Tell your sister she was right," and when he said, "You were right about me."
Well, that one I get. That one I get.
Mm-hmm.
If
Yeah.
you want to put Ferris's comment back on here, I've got a. I know a little bit about this.
Which Oh,
The
the
last
one
one.
right here. The last one. Okay.
Yeah, Lucas did want a female protagonist, but
Mm-hmm.
it was a totally different story, as I'm sure you know, Ambassador. He wanted to get into the Journal of the Wills and bring in some kind of
Mm-hmm.
different dimension within Star Wars. And
Mm-hmm.
well, I think we all are aware of the fact that George was kind of tricked when they bought his
Yeah.
treatments and stuff.
Yeah.
But
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It'd be interesting to see what that would have been like. Um,
Well,
even
mhm.
a guy I trust more than Abrams is who's the guy that they fired off of Rise of Skywalker?
Colin Trevorrow.
Yeah, I trust him more, just based on the fact that Mark Hamill had said that he and him were on the same page, and that they
Yes.
were, I mean, that's essential. So, but anyway,
Well, and the other factor with this story is, with my story, is that Luke is not the all powerful Jedi Master or anything, but all of them become equally powerful in themselves. But Luke does have his moments in my story, and I do make reference to the fact that, well, it's actually towards the beginning of my story, and there's a conversation. The thing for me was I didn't want this just to be all action and explosions and space battles. I wanted there to be conversation between the characters. Let's see. Ambassador Wing Bigger says, "Tell your sister you were right." Okay, that's
oh, okay, gotcha.
okay.
We
Tell your
misremembered it a
sister.
little bit.
Yeah, and hey, that can happen. I mean, tell your sister you were right. So,
Yeah, and that makes sense. That makes sense.
so, but as I was saying, there's a lot of dialogue in this because you need to understand the mindset of these characters. You need to understand what's going on in their minds, and the only way you can really do that is through dialogue. So I tried to write these characters in a way that was in keeping with what we had gotten introduced to in the sequels, but I took it and I turned it on its head to make it more believable. And let me just, let me bring up something here real quick. I'll bring back up the fan fiction. I'll bring up my script real quick, or my manuscript, I should say. Just bear with me for a minute. Because there's a conversation between Finn and Anakin and Luke. I think. No, it's not Luke. But it's Anakin and Finn for sure. So, all right, here we go. What in the world? Actually, that does help. Okay, hang on here 1 second. Just gotta get to it.
I would like to tell the chat though my favorite scene from Star Wars.
Sure. By all means, yes, please, Zach. Yeah,
I
sure.
think to me what is pure Star Wars is that sequence where Luke enters the carbonite room.
Mm-hmm.
And he's looking around, and you've got the music and the smoke and the weird noises. And he looks over, and there's Darth standing there. And he goes, "The Force is with you, young Skywalker, but you are not a Jedi yet."
Not yet.
Badass. Totally badass.
Yes.
Pure Star
Yes.
Wars. That's probably my favorite scene.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I actually found this is from, if I remember correctly, part 2. And this is Rey's journey to one of the moons of Octu. As the A-Wing speeds towards the moon, Rey takes a few moments to meditate, preparing herself for whatever may lay ahead of her. Luke's last words echo in her mind. Don't fail yourself. What awaits me on the moon? What will be on the moon besides saber crystals? We will find out together, Anakin comments. Mass Anakin. Hello, Rey. His voice becomes audible in her mind. Do you have any clues as to what is on the moon? I have ventured there a few times, but it's best you discover its wonders for yourself. Rey smiles. Were you always this annoying when you were alive? Anakin lets out a short chuckle. Ask Obi-Wan. He has a few stories to share. Rey brings the fighter in for a landing in a clearing amongst a pinewood forest. The moon that orbits Octu differs starkly from its watery neighbor, dotted by lush forests and separated by vast savannas. The moon is also home to several temples that were erected by the early adherents to the Jedi Order. Near the area where Rey lands, a massive temple peaks above the forest roof. Anakin appears next to Rey as she exits the A-Wing. Can you sense the force emitting from the temple? Her eyes widen. Yes. Amazing. The force is so strong here. That's why the Jedi settled here. But there's more. Let's head to that temple. Passing through the entryway into the temple, Rey and Anakin find it remarkably intact and its architecture nearly flawless. Jedi built this? Anakin pauses. You've never seen images of the temple on Coruscant, have you? No. Luke hasn't shown me anything like that. Let me put it to you this way, Rey. The temple there was the seat of the Jedi Order, but here and a few other places are the spiritual core of the Order. But we aren't here to admire statues. Let's find you a saber crystal. As they proceed deeper into the temple, the conversation takes an interesting turn. Anakin, can I ask you a personal question? Go ahead. What was it like being Vader? Anakin pauses. A shadow seems to cover his face. Rey recoils. I'm sorry. Anakin's force apparition seems to dim in brightness. Vader was pain, anger, rage, sorrow, focus, and power. He was like a separate part of me that shackled and placed me in a prison. Is it like that for everyone who falls to the dark side? Rey inquires. He shakes his head. Very rarely. Some embrace the darkness. For others, it creeps in slowly. Before you know it, its chains are all around you. That's what it was like for me. Palpatine made these promises. He wore the guise of a friend. And little by little, he fed the monster inside me. Rey lowers her head. I will never become like that. I will never let the darkness take me. Anakin turns to her. There is one thing you should know, Ray. The Force isn't dark or light. It is how one wields it. Why do you think Luke, myself, and the others aren't being as restrictive in your training? Palpatine told me one thing that I believe even now was true. To understand the great mystery, one must explore all aspects of the Force. The Force is a matter of balance, both with how it's used and balance within oneself.
Yeah.
So I should seek balance within myself and balance with the world around you. And remember, the Force is all around us. It expands as life does. Ray and Anakin enter a large subterranean chamber, illuminated with thousands of kyber crystals. An array of color surrounds them: green, blue, yellow, and purple. They both stand still for a few minutes to marvel at the spectacle. Time to choose, Anakin whispers. But how will I know? The Force will show you. Rey reaches out with her senses and listens. Her focus turns to a cluster of crystals on the far side of the chamber. As she approaches, a purple kyber crystal starts to grow brightly. She gives it a sharp pull, and crystal releases from the wall. She turns to Anakin. Interesting selection, he remarks. I didn't choose it. The Force guided me to it. I know, he replies with a knowing smile. It was the same with me.
Well, I do have some comments on that, all positive, actually.
Mm-hmm.
It's very funny. I mean, my inclination as a writer too, and as a fan, is to go with the dialogue scene too. But it seems like nobody in Disney thinks that dialogue scenes are important. I have a lot of dialogue in my own ideas, if you know, but
Mm-hmm.
when you're talking about the dark side, there was a thing in, I believe it was the Attack of the Clones novelization, that
Mm-hmm.
Dooku was shocked when he fought Yoda. He was shell shocked by that experience because it led him to believe that Yoda had knowledge of the dark side. Okay, that perhaps Yoda had practiced in his earlier years, or had some type of knowledge of it in order to counteract some of Dooku's force energy and so forth and
Force
so on.
lightning.
Well, not only that, but just whatever it was between their duel led Dooku to believe that Yoda had been a practitioner, not in a serious way, we assume, right? But a practitioner. It doesn't go into great detail of the dark side.
Well, here's the interesting thing. I will address your question. I do want to address Ferris's, and shout to the chat, Daniel Martin and DJ Odyssey. Gentlemen, good evening, and thank you both very much. Good to see you both, and thank you for stopping by this evening. With Ferris, as much as I enjoyed the prequel trilogies, do you think having Gary Kurtz as producer and Lawrence Kasdan as screenwriter would make the prequel trilogy make the prequel trilogy a better product? Potentially, Ferris. Yeah, I do think that. I think it was a detriment to Lucas for him to be kind of in a echo chamber or in a yes man room with everybody just going, yeah, of course, George, it's brilliant, everything's
No
brilliant.
doubt about it. No doubt
Yeah,
about it.
I think having others working alongside him was Lucas's strength. So, and when he kind of lost touch with all those other people, or for whatever reason, it kind of crippled him, so to speak. Because think about it, this movie back here behind me, Empire Strikes Back, was not necessarily completely written by George Lucas. It was written by Lee Brackett and Lawrence Kasdan, and Lee Brackett had a very long career in Hollywood. I mean, for heaven's sake, she helped write the script for one of the greatest um, westerns of all time. And it's a
Which
John
one?
Wayne, El Dorado,
Oh, okay.
A John Wayne
Gotcha.
classic.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I have to agree. I think having Kasdan and Kurtz involved would have probably made the prequel trilogy better.
Was
Do I
Kirsch
enjoy?
around? Was Kirsch around at that time?
I honestly don't remember. I mean, I know he passed away, but I don't remember when he passed away per se.
Well,
So
I
I.
would just say this really quickly is that
Mhm.
the,
Mhm.
the Mount Rushmore of Star Wars, you got Lucas, but you got Kirshner right next to him. I don't think we would have Star Wars without Irvin Kershner.
Oh
I don't
no,
think we'd have it today.
yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with you. I mean, Irvin, Irvin Kershner, he wasn't known for doing sci-fi work before Empire. He did small character-driven stories, but that's what Lucas wanted, and that's what that's
Well,
what.
he took Star Wars, kept what we liked about it, and added
Mhm.
new elements into it, and in a legitimate way branched it out and created its kind of its own thing. It's totally a different film from Star Wars. There's no
Oh
doubt
yeah.
about it.
Well, here's the thing. It does have a somewhat slower pace, but and
Yes.
there are so many iconic scenes in Empire. I mean, you've got Obi-Wan showing up there on Hoth, saying, "You will go to the Dagobah system and seek out Master Yoda, or seek out Yoda, the Jedi Master who
Yep.
taught me." You've got the duel between Luke and Vader, which is one of the most iconic scenes, and it's got one of the most iconic reveals in all of cinema ever. I mean, Empire is a masterclass in how to do a good middle chapter well. I would say one of the only other, it stands somewhat unto itself, but at the same time, it stands alongside several other middle chapters that were exceedingly good. The Dark Knight, the
Oh
Two
my God.
Towers,
Yep.
the two towers. Now, granted, I've never seen it all the way through, but The Godfather Part Two, I will say,
Oh,
I know,
amazing. It is amazing. Yeah.
but I would say even Superman 2. That is, those are some of the most iconic middle chapters in a franchise as there has ever been. But with the truly sad thing was, you had Irvin Kershner, who had a very strong pedigree as a director, as a creative in the entertainment industry, and Lucas turned to him. He was a professor at I think it was UCLA, or no, USC, and that's why Lucas went to him and said, "Hey, I want you to come work on this." And Irvin's like, "George, this really isn't my thing." He's like, "Okay, I'll trust you. I'll come help you out. Be happy to." And we now have Empire Strikes Back. On the
I,
counterpoint,
here's a fun
you've got.
part of that is Kirsch called his agent, and Kirsch's agent told him, he said, "I don't really think so." And his agent said, "Are you out of your
None of your
fucking mind?"
mind. And but then on the other hand, you've got and I'm gonna do my very best to be not be as belligerent as I have been in the past on this, but I'll say it this way: you have a very untested, a very underutilized, and someone that hasn't had a long and storied career in the entertainment industry in terms of Ryan Johnson. You've got someone who whose resume isn't loaded with a lot of credits and accolades and so on.
Yeah, that was an insane choice, Ambassador. I mean, that's
And
basically like hiring you or me. It's like, what the fuck? For you or I to get a job directing Star Wars would be insane. Rian Johnson is not that fucking far ahead of. He's done television at that point, and he did Looper, which was I didn't like.
most people say Looper is mediocre at best, and
Yeah,
I've never, it's not, And now here's the thing: I say this kind of tongue in cheek. I will never watch Knives Out. I could give two hoots in hell about
I
Knives
haven't
Out,
seen it either. Yeah, neither have I.
and it's at first it was purely it was an antagonistic stance on my point. But here's the thing: if I want to watch a good whodunit,
Clue, right?
damn you beat me to it. And
It's
I do want
Clue.
to,
You can't do
yes,
better than that.
not really. And I want to send a shout to the chat, Septic Stream, Septic. I've seen you around a few times, and thank you for popping by tonight. I do appreciate it. Tonight, I'm celebrating 2 years on YouTube. I've done my review of Ghostbusters Afterlife. We're talking about my fan fiction project. That this is this is the night I make my big reveal. I will bring up your comment here. Um, my partner doesn't like Empire. He says it ruined Darth Vader because he wasn't clumsy. I love him, but geez, I hate that take. Vader wasn't clumsy. Where the hell does
He
your
was. I think what he's talking about is that well, he or she, I don't know, but regardless,
yeah?
I think what that opinion is all about is that
Mhm.
when Vader shows up during the fight scene and he's just swinging like a maniac, right? To me, that shows the aggression in Darth.
Well, yeah, because at that particular moment, Luke had just landed a blow and he was in pain, and he was like, "Well, you little
Well, not
shit."
only that, there's a scene where when they get out to that catwalk, Vader appears in the corridor like
Mhm.
a horror film character.
Well, and that was kind of the point. But yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, that's all I'm saying is
Mhm.
there's aggression in Vader, and he was
Mhm.
a guy who had not been fully redeemed at that point. We're talking
No.
about a conflicted guy. He's all about anger. So for me, the fighting style he used first, he was testing Luke, and then he's saying,
Mhm.
"Oh shit, this guy's actually pretty good. Obi-Wan trained you well. Let me show him a thing or two. Show this guy who's boss." Right? That kicks in. The competitiveness kicks in
Yes.
after a while.
Well, and think about it too. Anakin, he was always very hot-headed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I wrote the dialogue for Anakin the way I did, particularly with the part I just read. And I did keep I've held to this position. Other people disagree with it. That's fine. I believe that Vader was a separate persona from Anakin. There were, I think, because the way I describe it in my story, when Anakin says to Rey, Vader was a prison, he was a cage that shackled my better nature. Now, Anakin was ambitious, he was hot headed, but Vader was completely and utterly different. And when Vader says to Luke, "You don't understand the power of the dark side. I must obey my master." And even when he says that name no longer has any meaning for me, that's Vader rejecting the persona of Anakin.
Well, it's also one of those things where
Mhm.
I've suffered so much pain, you're
Mhm.
not going to hurt me anymore. That's also what that is. That the character of Vader that he created is a shield to prevent himself from being hurt any further. Um,
Mhm.
Another interesting thing about his character is his character was basically brought up as a guy who was told by one of his early mentors and has been discussed around him and about him the fact that the whole chosen one prophecy. I mean, imagine
Mhm.
being raised, being told, yeah, you're going to grow up to end world peace or solve world hunger and create world peace. I mean, that's an insane amount of pressure to put on a little boy. That's kind of like a crazy thing to tell a kid. So he was
Yes.
raised with that burden as well.
Mhm.
And you also have the celebrity factor, people talking about him. Everybody knows who this guy is. It's like being told, Ambassador, you are the new Jesus Christ. I mean, that's basically what they said
Mhm.
to him.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, and Ferris brings up a good point here and everything that kind of goes along with what you're saying. One of the biggest cons of the prequel trilogy is not making Anakin in his early teens and having him in the same age as Padme. As much as I like Jake Lloyd before Star Wars, I feel bad for his career. Yeah, Ferris, I agree. Well, and that's why I also wrote Anakin, and that's why I wanted to include Anakin as the Force Ghost, not just because it was a cool idea, but because I feel that he could add perspective for Finn and for his grandson Ben, and also for Rey, and for even Luke and everything, and also for Leia. Because there's great little moments throughout the story, um, when Anakin is interacting with Luke and when he's interacting with Leia and with Rey and with Finn. And there's a point where Finn makes the decision to go forward with his Force training. And Anakin has a very private moment. It's a bit of internal dialogue. He says, maybe this time it'll be different. Maybe it won't be like it was with Ahsoka. Because he feels like he failed in his training of Ahsoka as a Jedi. And now he has a chance at redemption in helping guide Finn.
Well, another thing I think that makes his character a relatable character is he's portrayed as a guy who basically has it all and yet lets that slip away from him. I mean,
Mhm.
look at him at his penthouse apartment with a queen, right? A beautiful
Mhm.
woman. He's got everything he could ever need. He's about to have a kid. He's got a very prestigious job, and yet this is a guy who let all that stuff get taken away from him, and did it. You know, he obviously didn't destroy himself on purpose, but this
No.
is a guy who made bad choices, and
Mhm.
that's kind of what makes him, I think, a dynamic character.
Yeah. Well, and I'll bring up Septic's comment here real quick. I know the prequels have tons of problems, but they are a part of my heart. But the sequel trilogy tainted Star Wars for me. I still love Star Wars, but I feel like I have to ignore the sequels to enjoy it. Septic, I do understand what you're saying. I sometimes feel the same way myself because I went and saw, I had the I you know I talked about this last night on my Star Wars stream. I got to see the only original trilogy film I got to see in theaters was Jedi. And then, of course, I got to see the special editions in theaters, and that for me was an absolute blast, an absolute treat, and I will love it to my dying day. And I got to see the sequels in theaters, and I saw all of them multiple times because that's how much I love them. And because, like I've said numerous times, I believe if my father were still alive, we would have gone to see the prequels together, and we probably would have gone more than once. This would have been a father and son thing, and mom probably would have come along too because she likes Star Wars. She's not the uber fan like I am, but she likes it and everything. And for me, the story that I've created, like I said, it's a very personal one because I can't help but write it that way because I have a connection to so many of these characters, even to a certain degree, the sequel trilogy characters. And I wanted to make them better than how they were treated in the films. I wanted Finn to have a journey that meant something, not him just running around screaming Ray all the time. He has his moments in this story. He gets to train with Ahsoka and Grogu and Luke and with the Force Ghosts. he gets his moment in the sun, and he has setback, he has failure, he has loss. And that's what makes Finn a rich and dynamic character, not just some bonehead running around screaming somebody's name all the time or speaking cheesy dialogue like "they fly now." There is no "they fly now" in my story. And I'm not a trained writer. I'm not a professional writer. The only writing I've ever done before I did this was academic. I wrote academic papers for when I was in school or in college or in seminary throughout my life. That's the writing I've done. So doing a type of creative writing like this has been a somewhat of a challenge for me. But considering how well I know this universe and how I feel the connection I have to these characters, I feel I can write this. I could write this story and do it somewhat competently.
Well, as you know, Ambassador, somehow Palpatine returned.
No. And I will say this. I don't know. You probably didn't watch it, and that's fine. They did the Star Wars Lego Holiday Special back last year, and there is a line of dialogue in that special, and it's said by Ben Solo or Kylo Ren, and he's telling Palpatine what happens to him in down the road, and Ben says to him, "Then there ain't no coming back from that." That's the people who wrote the dialogue and animated that Lego Holiday Star Wars special, saying to the people who wrote the sequel trilogy, "You all screwed it up." Even Madam Ambassador was singing here in the living room with me when we watched that, and she's like, "Oh hell, they just threw shade." I'm like, "You damn right they threw shade. They threw massive shade." I mean, even Luke's line at the end of the Mandalorian when he says, "Talent without training means nothing." That was a direct indictment of how they wrote Rey. She may have had
I think
talent.
she was miscast too. To be honest with you, I think we had a bad casting choice with her.
With Daisy Ridley.
Oh, for sure, no doubt about it in my mind.
I didn't hate the character. I just didn't like how they portrayed her.
Well, did you like the expressiveness of her face throughout the films? Very expressive.
From what little bit I remember, I guess so. Yeah.
Well, I'm being sarcastic. I'm being sarcastic.
Yeah, I know you are, because honestly, she was she has a poor time emoting. And I'm not trying to be mean.
It may not be her fault. We don't know per
Well,
se, right? But
no, well, here's the crazy thing. She had more expression on her face when they did that group interview for The Rise of Skywalker, and the interviewer asked them, "If you could sum up your experience on The Rise of Skywalker, what would it be?" But with no words. And you see all their expressions on her face, and she shows more expression in that interview than she did throughout the entire sequel trilogy.
well, here's something interesting for you. I think maybe if you went with like Gal Gadot for that part with the exact same lines, it would have been a better character.
Potentially, yeah. Maybe.
I think if I think it's a bad casting choice. Now, I'm not saying she's a bad actor. I just don't think she was the right actor for the part.
She wasn't the right fit. You have to make the right fit
Now,
for each part.
I would make a different argument when it comes to Finn and Poe. I think we're both talented actors. Oscar Isaac is awesome. Finn did a good job given what little breadcrumbs they gave him. I mean, that to me was a racist decision to do.
John Boyega, Finn was screwed.
But here's my thought process on it: is I think it all has to do with China and overseas box office. I really do. I mean, they took him off of the posters, so I think that's probably what it was all about.
Well,
Chinese people are racist. Is that a shock to anybody? They
they're
don't like black films. They don't watch them. They don't go to them, and it just is what it is. And
yeah.
if I was Disney, I would not give a rat's ass what China thinks. But of course, I'm not them.
Well, if you noticed, they didn't back down in what they kept in the Eternals, so they didn't edit any of that crap out, except for maybe a few pieces here and there. But they kept the certain elements of that story intact for the Eternals.
That's good. I haven't seen it, but I'm happy to hear it.
No, hey, that's fine. This isn't about the Eternals tonight. It's even, but what I intend on doing with Finn in parts 1 and 2, and what he gets in this story is a lot better than what he got throughout in just this one story, in just this one part. He gets more character development and more growth, and he gets to have several great moments. Like I said, a couple of them are very dark, and I take him on a journey that actually means something. And he develops connection with Rey, and he develops connection with Ahsoka and Grogu. There's a small little scene between him and Grogu, and I won't give anything away, but I can keep it vague enough where Finn's like, I should have been there to help. I should have gone with them instead of staying here to train. And Grogu says to him, where you were supposed to be is where you were.
Ambassador,
you were not ready for that situation yet. You needed to train further, but you are where you need to be right now.
Have you seen, this is going to sound unrelated, but it's not. Have you seen the film Kung Fu Panda?
I have, and I love that movie.
I love it too. Have you seen the second one?
I haven't had a chance to see the other
Please
other
do.
2 parts.
Please do. You know what?
I saw the first one. And I'm like, I could dig this. I mean,
yeah.
I love movies like that. I love CGI films like that. I mean, I think DreamWorks, sadly, means I think they had a very good run for a while. DreamWorks Animation in particular. I mean, can we just say Shrek? I mean, at least
I would say Kung Fu Panda.
Kung Fu Panda's good too. I will not dispute that.
This is a little bit embarrassing, but every time I have seen Kung Fu Panda 2, makes me tear up. Every time I see it. The second one. Okay. The second one is so good. So good. There's a scene in Kung Fu Panda, or there's a whole concept of Po finding out who his parents were in Kung Fu Panda 2, and it was done in such a beautiful way. You should totally take a look at it, because you can contrast that to Star Wars. That gave me an idea when you were talking about seeing Finn as a little kid being kidnapped by the stormtroopers, and show his parents there. Do kind of like a Galen Erso, Jyn Erso sequence. Why can't they do that for him? Just give him a little bit of background. Give him a little backstory. That's not hard.
Well,
show his parents getting shot, or there's so many things you could do with that. Well, and that's and Ambassador. That's like a 30-second scene if you do it as a flash, right?
Yeah, as a
that's not a hard thing to do.
Well, here's the thing. I'm keeping the fact that he was a member of the First Order, but I'm going to expand upon that. And here's why. Snoke wants more Force wielders. And he wants Ben to be the one that trains them to become a further expansion of the Knights of Ren. And what the First Order does is they kidnap children that they know have a connection to the Force that they can develop.
Palpatine vibes from that.
A little bit, yeah.
But you remember that whole thing?
but here's the thing. where Palpatine wanted to limit them, Snoke wants to let them have their full potential realized, because Snoke realizes for his perspective to remain, there needs to be more there needs to be more adherence to the dark side, because
Yeah.
remember who Snoke is.
Well, that's a good
He's
idea. I think the abandonment of the rule of two is a great idea.
the rule of two had its time. It had its purpose. It fulfilled its purpose.
It did. Yeah, it did.
So I think the dynamic of Snoke and Ben Solo and the Knights of Ren, and the Knights of Ren being students from from Luke's school, and then it being expanded out further beyond that. That's kind of the idea I have. Because the dynamic in my story does very much revolve around the relationship of Ben, Snoke, Rey, and Luke. They are kind of the focus here. They are the focal point of the story. Because as I read that one part and everything, when they're telling the history of the ancient Jedi, they understand why the Force is in the state that it's in now.
Well,
And that's why.
you're not the only friend of mine who has done like a Star Wars fan project. Generally speaking, the advice that I give to everybody is just
Mhm.
make that and change the names and make that your own thing.
Mhm.
Which obviously you've got it's clearly going to be Star Wars, but there's a certain value to fan projects, and it's just kind of a shame that you can't make money on them. And yeah,
Yeah. And I get that. And honestly, for me, my my payout, quote unquote, is for people to have a great experience being a part of this project. That for me, that's my reward. Is for people to have had a great experience being a part of this project, whatever role, be it small or big, that they want to have in it. That for me is, I don't care that I'm not going to make any money on this. It doesn't. That's never been my
well,
goal. But
I can
I
give you
do.
a good example
Sure.
of what I'm talking about. And I've done fan fictions. So we're doing one together with Shay
Mm-hmm.
and other people. So
Yeah, and
I
I
get it.
definitely want, and I do want to talk about that and everything. So if you
If
want to transition over to that, we most
oh,
certainly
it's
can.
it's your show, your
Well,
choice.
I mean, I've kind of said my piece on Unity of the Force. We can come back to it, but I do want I made a promise to you. I keep my word, so we can definitely talk about the
Sure,
project we are working
yeah,
on.
we can
So,
do that.
but go ahead and make your point.
I've got a friend of mine who's working with me on something else, the comic book, which I think I showed you a couple, or I think I
Mhm.
sent you all
Yeah,
of what we had. So
yeah.
he's
Mhm.
also doing a Star Wars video game, and
Ooh.
he's got tremendous assets. He's got everything you could possibly want. The idea, I think, is a best-selling idea. What his idea is a Star Wars game that is set in every single era of Star Wars, where you have campaign missions in each era, and it's kind of like a
Mm.
timeline where you have this section and 4 or 5 missions, and then you transition to this 4 or 5 missions, and so on and so forth, including legends and
Mm.
including everything else. And Ambassador,
Wow.
a multiplayer section where you can play as all the characters from Star Wars, including Legends and Old Republic and Clone Wars and the Era of the
Oh, I
Empire.
love it. I
So
love
do
it.
I.
I
So do
love
I.
it.
And
Yes.
this guy's also got. I'm not going to say his name just because I don't want to give out what the
No, that's
project
fine.
is. He
No,
hasn't
that's
announced
fine.
it, so but he's
Yeah.
actually heard back from Microsoft and is going to be allowed to pitch and show his what he's come up with.
That's great.
It is great, but
That's great.
what I've told him just as my counsel, my advice to him is, if it doesn't work out, what you need to do is remove all the different elements you've used that you can get sued for and make it its own game. Right. So
That could work. That could potentially work too. Yeah, totally. So, well, and for those of you that have stuck around this late, appreciate y'all sticking around and everything. The other thing that Zach has alluded to, this is Zach approached me a few months ago about a fan film based in the Star Wars universe, also, and it is a fan film. It's not just a fan fiction like mine that's going to be turned into a radio drama. This is a full on fan film. That's based in the expanded universe, particularly in the Old Republic era, and focused on, I think, one of the most interesting characters of the expanded universe, Revan.
yeah. Well, Ambassador, I really needed somebody like yourself to help point me in the right direction in terms of what
Mm-hmm.
can and can't be done, and lore wise and character wise. So, that you were really a tremendous help in designing the
I
story.
tried.
And we talked about it. I mean, we referenced historical war in real life to kind
Mm-hmm.
of give us a little bit of inspiration as well. Um, but yeah, we've got the Mandalorian Wars, we've got Revan, we've got Malik, we've got
Mm-hmm.
the ancient Jedi Council, which
Mm-hmm.
we've set on the proper homeworld, actually,
Mm-hmm.
which I didn't know they weren't always on Coruscant. I didn't know that, but
No,
the Jedi,
they were once upon a time, as is in my story, they were on Tython.
that's where they are in ours. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so
Um,
uh,
well, and to just a real quick thing, for those that have seen the poster, and I'll be posting on social media now that I've made my announcement. Um, the three worlds that you see on my poster, one is Exegol, one is Octo, and the other is Tython. So, because they all carry a connection to the Force. So, but Zach, go on, please.
well, I forget what I was saying. I think I threw it off to you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well,
Well, just about the
you,
location of the Jedi Temple and the
yeah,
machinery that we
mhm,
can use and can't use and stuff like that. What
yeah.
makes sense, and what we really tried to do was to create something that was kind of a side mission, right?
Yes,
That
it was a side story, but
yeah,
does link into the broader context of the Mandalorian Wars. And what me and Zach worked to what we crafted and everything in terms of the story is it's kind of Revan's first steps on his path to becoming Darth Revan. Um, it does have a lot of great moments. I have read the script and everything. I won't share a lot of it here and everything because
and
we're
I hope
keeping
you
it.
liked the script.
I did. I can't
Good.
remember if I messaged you back or anything, but yeah, I did enjoy it and everything. Um, there's a lot of great moments between Revan and Malik. This is actually before their corruption and fall. This is before all that. And the thing I will say is it was nice delving into the lore of a period or an era in the Star Wars universe that I have a lot of love for because I love the old Republic era um of the Star Wars universe. I loved when I heard that Dark Horse Comics was getting the opportunity to come back and make more Star Wars comic books, I absolutely almost jumped out of my skin. And for me, it was a great treat to hear that because Dark Horse did such a great job with all of with all the comic books that they created in the 90s and going into the 2000s and so on. And the fact that our story touches upon that era and tells this very small but also very powerful story about Revan's journey to the dark side. But it's not in the manner that you believe. He doesn't do it because he is power hungry or because he's evil. He's doing it for what he feels is a justified cause.
And by the way, I think the ending has been changed via executive order by our director,
Hmm.
but which is fine with me. I mean, I think the
Hmm.
new ending has been basically designed to fit right into everything we already know,
Okay.
because our ending maybe took a little bit of a left turn in a certain way. So, but
Yeah. Oh, hey.
they loved it. They loved it. The production team loved it, and I think a major point that we can make is it's not us doing it. We wrote the story. Now our job is finished, which is a
Yeah.
beautiful thing. We can
Yes.
sit on our ass and watch it get made without
Yes.
having to do the legwork. We don't have to do nothing now.
Well,
So
and the big thing is it takes just as much effort to sit down and brainstorm a story and then sit down and write it. It takes just as much effort. It takes just as much creativity because you're trying to put into words what people are going to see on the screen.
I don't agree with that. As a guy who's been on the set, it is a slog. It's a horror.
Oh, I'm
It's a
sure it is.
It is. I did a movie. It's on IMDb. I did a movie this
Mhm.
month actually, and it was like a 35-minute hike to get to the set in the middle of the
Oof,
forest. So
dude. Oof.
what a nightmare! And I'll tell you, I mean, we're talking about 45-foot elevations that you have to go up and down to get there.
Oh, hell.
So it
Dude,
was
you have my
and carrying packages of film equipment and makeup and all that shit. It was a nightmare,
I
but
can
we had a good time. But no, no, it's a lot
I've
better being at home where we've got heat or air conditioning, right?
yeah, you're
So
not wrong. I mean, yeah, I'm not saying that they're completely comparable, but mentally speaking, it can be very tasking at times creating stories like this. Whereas when you're actually on set doing all of that work, because I've heard stories from other
I felt like a fat
people.
fuck doing that hike. I did.
Well,
I was huffing and puffing. They almost had they almost had to carry me. No, that part's a joke, but it was a nightmare. I was going breathing heavy. Oh my god. But
well, you know,
but we both seen the trailer. I mean, the trailer looks phenomenal. I mean, and
yeah.
that's the preliminary trailer. They haven't even released a real one yet.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I imagine. Well, and as I said, I have no real ambitions to like work in the entertainment industry or anything, but I'm more than happy to be a part of this Revan fan film because it's a character that I love. As a Star Wars fan, Revan has always been an enigma, and he's been fleshed out, but there's always more room to play with a character like him. And I honestly, when you approached me and said, "Hey, we want you to help us out with this. You know this character, you know this universe. Will you help us?" I was like, "It's an opportunity for me to go into a sandbox that I know just about every square inch of and do something different, do something fun." And that for me, that's the plus side of this. And I honestly, I can't wait to see the final product. And for those of you that will see the fan film, when you see the credit of story advisor slash associate producer or whatever, and you see the name
Yep.
R. Phillips, that's me. Now,
Yep.
as I said, that's a pseudonym for my real name. I won't give out my real name. It's not anything personal. It's just I prefer my anonymity. But I picked a pseudonym or pseudo name, I think, for the sake of the story, for both the project that me and Zach worked on together and for my story as well. Because if you read the full title, it says fan fiction by R. Phillips, aka the Ambassador.
And
For
I'm
those
also
that,
allowed to announce
Mhm.
the name of the film, actually.
Oh,
The
okay,
final name
cool,
of the film.
cool.
Revan
Okay,
Fallen Jedi.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. It's simple, but it's powerful, and that's the cool thing. And for anybody out there that hears the stream and the replay and you think, ooh, we finally know the ambassador's name. No, you don't. Because as I said, it's a pseudonym. It's a pseudo name. It's not my real name. But it's got some elements of my real name in it. So, but no, that's not my actual name. There's only a handful of people. Zach is one of them that knows at least my first name.
Yes.
So,
well, I'm also pleased to announce Revan, the actor, has been cast.
oh, excellent.
Yes. So, and all that information is on IMDb if anybody's interested to check it out. Ambassador, it really should blow up. I mean, it should be a big, big fucking deal. I mean, we'll see.
Well,
what happens.
I'm going to, when I do my own promotion for my story, I'm going to promote that as well, because I know a lot of people who are just as hardcore Star Wars fans as I am, and I for one, I want to support this, not just because my name's attached to it, but because I love fan films, regardless of the universe it's in. I love fan films from the Star Trek universe. I love fan films, obviously, from Star Wars. There have been fan films that have been done in the Halo universe, and so on. And yes, I did see your comment the other day about the casting of the actor who's going to play Captain Keyes. For me,
don't even defend it. We can move on.
I'm not trying to defend it. It's just, for me, it's a non-issue. I'm not trying to be mean or rude or anything. I just don't care.
Captain Keyes is your central character, basically, in fucking Combat Evolved. He is. There's no doubt about it. He's your central plot point character. He's also at the end of Reach. He's in Halo Reach as well.
Yeah.
A very important character to the lore and history of Halo.
Yeah.
I just don't see a reason to do it. I really don't. But
I like I said, it's not that I'm like pissed off. I'm indifferent and everything. It's
who said I was pissed?
Oh, I'm not saying you were necessarily pissed. I was just I wasn't saying you were pissed.
Questioned it.
Yeah, like why? Yeah, I get that. I do. So, but like I said, I will always be a supporter of fan films or fan projects, regardless of the type.
Well,
I mean, obviously, I'm a creator of my own now.
Well, Ambassador, hopefully the film will allow us to be a supporter of you. I mean, that's the real beauty of it, is hopefully it turns out to be a thing where we can all benefit from the film itself. And that's my hope for it.
And if that's the case, great. Like I said, I'm going to do everything in my power to promote it, to get the word out. Once we get a final trailer, I will run it on my channel as much as I can. I will share it out with everybody that I know. And I know a lot of people, both people who are Star Wars fans and others that just like good stories. And
well, you're going to love this. When we do press and we do it virtually, it's going to be done with a red and a purple background on the either person talking about it. So we've got everything set up. Yeah, it's going to be great.
Awesome.
It'll be my first video in a long time. All the other videos are private. First video on my 80,000 subscriber channel. That should help, I would think. So we'll find out.
We can hope so. Yeah. So, but yeah, we're gonna probably wrap up here in a few minutes. When I started this journey 2 years ago, I never expected it would avail me of the opportunities it has. It would have availed me of meeting all the people that I have. But I consider myself extremely fortunate and also very blessed that I have met all the people that I have on my journey in this thing called YouTube. And, the channel has evolved. I have not so much evolved myself, but I've kind of modified how I present myself on here. It still stays true to who I am, just in a matter of how I represent the things I talk about. And as I at the core of all of this, I wanted the ambassadorial wing to be a place where we could gather and have good discussion, fun discussion, thoughtful discussion about this thing known as pop culture. Whether you regard yourself as a geek or a nerd or not, doesn't matter. But we are always fans of these universes that we have a connection to. And for me, the last 2 years, I have had the pleasure of meeting people like yourself, Zach, and so many others. I can't list them all here. It's impossible. But I will say this. I regard it as one of the best experiences and one of the most rewarding experiences that I've had in a very long time. And for however long I am able to continue on this journey, wherever it ends up taking me, and in terms of the fact of the story that I'm telling with my fan fiction, that is now going to be expanded into its own trilogy, I count myself very fortunate and very blessed to share this journey with you all.
I had a couple of things.
Sure.
Unless you wanted to quit right now, but
no, we can go for a few minutes. That's fine.
After
that's fine.
After the failure of Unknown Regions, I have been methodically producing content. We've been working on it for like 6 months. A new podcast, and it's something I think that's really special. I mean, it's kind of a review show sandwiched between beginning and end of a sitcom. Like, it's kind of a goofy comedy situation, and you guys will be hearing about that soon, hopefully. But I thought a good way to end would be to end on Dan Aykroyd singing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Send us out on a positive note, man. Dan Aykroyd, let's see what he's got.
Yeah, we'll definitely. Yeah, I want to hear this myself. I truly do, because I love Dan Aykroyd.
The whole clip is phenomenal.
Oh, 2.5. Okay, 2.5 minutes. That's not bad. Oh, and Ernie Hudson's there too. Darn it, that's awesome. Okay, hang on. I'm gonna have to share audio and everything, so just give me a minute. Let's see. Hang on. Okay, share screen.
But congrats, dude. Congrats for you, man. I'm happy for you. Great job. Great job. Always a good time here with you, man. And great Zach. Podcast. Low key. There's no problems here, and I can respect that. No beef, no drama. I mean, nothing more beautiful than that, right?
Yes. That's why I did that video that I did back a few months ago, where I said, this is why I don't do drama. There's no joy in it. There's no incentive in it. Why?
Not for me. There is for some people. What it is, it's cheap likes and cheap views. But that's not why people stick around. You can build your house from straw, or you can do it from brick.
Exactly. The wise man, it was a foolish man that built his house on sand. But the wise man built his house on stone. And when the storm came and the winds blew, the house stayed.
There you go.
Anyway, all right.
Wonderful way to end the show here. Little Dan Aykroyd.
Yeah.
Ghostbusters, The Afterlife, more with Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Ernie Hudson. Come on back. When everything is feeling kind of groovy, and I call you up and ask you if you want to come and see a movie. How first you say no, you have plans for the night, and then you stop and say all right. Oh, kind of spooky with a spooky little girl like you. know your little eye will be a wingman. Yeah. But you say no, you got a plan for the night, and then you say, oh, all right. Oh, yeah, yeah. Look at a crazy, spooky little girl. Yeah. Spooky, yeah. Spooky, spooky, little girl. Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Zach,
Doesn't get much
thank
better
you.
than that.
Very, very rarely. Very rarely. Yeah. That was great. I definitely got major Blues Brothers vibes from that, you know.
Bill dancing in the background with Ernie.
Yeah,
Doesn't get
him and
much better
Ernie.
than that.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
congrats, man. You know,
Zach,
happy to see
thank
it,
you
man.
for-
2 years.
Hey.
Well done, man.
yeah. And here's to many more. And Ferris, you are a dude. You take care of your kids. That's the most important thing. And to everybody who popped in tonight in the chat, to Zach and to LDG, who was here with us for a little bit, thank you all for being here tonight. The Ambassadorial Wing would be nothing without all of you. And I hope you all enjoy what I'm doing here for you all. I look forward to bringing you the Unity of the Force once I get it cast, and we'll be putting that. We'll be getting that rolling probably next year, because it's going to take time to cast this. It's going to take time to get this all scheduled out to where we can have everybody here to participate and do this thing and do it the right way. But just one final word from me. Know that whether you have been here from day one or you're just a recent subscriber, know that I appreciate every single last one of you. And you will always have a place here at the Ambassadorial Wing, because it isn't about me. It's about us. Because it's about unity. It's about friendship. It's about brotherhood and sisterhood. And it's also ultimately about family. And you all are my ambassadorial family. I will let y'all know I will be back tomorrow afternoon with my conclusion to the Return to the Matrix reviews. I'll be doing a discussion on the Matrix Revolutions. That'll be at 2:00 Central Time. And then, of course, I've got some new content coming up next month and going into next year as well, and everything. We'll be doing some reviews of some retro films from the early 2000s, and we'll be doing some stuff that's current as well. So, but anyways, folks, thank you again all for being here tonight. We'll see y'all next time. And until next time, these are the ambassadors signing off.